His handling of the no-huddle offense today against the Eagles defense was terrific. He was very crisp throwing the ball over the middle, but then he had a very bad interception that he threw in the end zone to end a no-huddle drill down in the red zone.
Newton did start the Pats preseason game against a Washington football team last Thursday, ended up being in on 12 snaps over 2 drives, went 4 of 7 passing for 49 yards. Falcons say the team is 100% fully vaccinated. ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski reporting today restricted free agent Josh Hart closing in on a 3-year, $38 million deal to remain with the New Orleans Pelicans. Carly Lloyd announcing that she will retire after playing in friendlies for the U.S. national team and the NWSL this fall. Megan Rapinoe set to join Sarah Spain and Courtney Cronin in 30 minutes. White Sox placing outfielder Adam Engel on the 10-day injured list Monday. Left shoulder inflammation for Engel. White Sox about to open up a home series against the Oakland A's. The series opener from Chicago tonight underway shortly and airing on ESPN TV. 4th inning in the Bronx. Yankees right now a 2-1 lead on the Angels. Joey Gallo a home run, a 2-run shot in the first for New York. Garrett Cole back from the COVID-19 IL and making the start tonight for the Yankees.
It's Alan Hahn, and Tuesday on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin, we're continuing to react to Week 1 of the preseason, and Key will tell you who needs to step up in Week 2. That's Tuesday morning on ESPN Radio.
Every weekday on Sports Radio 810, tune in to hear Kansas City's favorite local lineup. At 6 a.m., wake up with the Border Patrol with Stephen St. John and Nate Bucati. At 10, it's The Zone with Jason Anderson. Now at 2, get into the program with Soren Petro. And wrap up your day on Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco. Kansas City's hometown sports station. Sports Radio 810 WHB.
A KC tradition since 1957 and voted the best steak in Kansas City, Hereford House is a locally owned steakhouse that has served generations of Kansas Cityans. Hereford House exclusively serves certified Hereford beef. All their steaks are aged 21 days, hand-cut daily, and grilled over an open charcoal flame. Go to HerefordHouse.com for hours, new menu items, and to make your reservations. Follow Hereford House on Facebook and Instagram for exclusive specials. Hereford House, voted Kansas City's favorite steakhouse.
Isn't this a sports show?
See, Spagnuolo is a gift to the human race, really to the whole planet altogether. I bet animals would love Spags also. Actually, I know that's true. He's already friends with the honey badger. He's basically Cinderella.
Almost entirely.
Trying to imagine how that would go.
I actually am right now, yeah. I am, and it's awesome.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
What is that, a glass slipper? Is that for my left foot? Is that gonna fit on my foot?
The ball was yesterday? Wait, what time do we have to go home? Is it midnight?
Oh, is it? Listen.
What time is it?
When is
Good morning, guys.
Wait a second, is that turned into a pumpkin? What time? Is it AM or PM? Midnight and noon.
Take the show with you by listening on the Sports Radio 810 mobile app at 810WHB.com or by searching for Almost Entirely Sports wherever you get your podcasts.
You tell me this horse was a rat?
Wait, what? The horse is a rat? Why is it wearing your shirt? What's going on with the horse and the rat? Where's my honey badger?
This is Almost Entirely Sports on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I hope everybody is ready for an absolutely massive show tonight here on Almost Entirely Sports. I've had a long day, I had a busy weekend, and it's all going to turn into what I believe is going to be an excellent 3-hour stretch for us here tonight on AES. Thanks for being here to kick off another week with us. Kind of wild that there was a preseason game that happened just 2 days ago. Kind of feels like this whole weekend flew by, but again, because I was very busy throughout most of the weekend for reasons that I will explain momentarily. But we also have an entire preseason game that we can look back to and break down. Now I'm excited to do that because I think there were quite a few relatively interesting things that we could take away, even as Patrick Mahomes only played 4 snaps. But also, we have just a few days of training camp remaining. I made the trip up to St. Joe this morning, watched practice, had a few legit notes that I think are Pretty interesting. And then also had some press conferences after the after practice today, and got a couple interesting answers from Trey Smith and Ben Neiman for some questions that I posed to them, plus some stuff from Andy Reid on what I think is going to end up being kind of the storyline of today. But with all that being said, we'll come back to the preseason game here in just a second. But one, I want to give you sort of a tease, not just for today's show, but really in a lot of ways for this entire week of shows here on Almost Entirely Sports. I was out at the Harrah's in North Kansas City this weekend for a massive autograph signing, sports memorabilia event, and it was absolutely wild. And throughout the course of the weekend, I was able to talk to some people that you've probably heard of. On Saturday, it was sort of baseball day. Got to talk to Scott Barlow, Brady Singer, Hunter Dozier, and Nicky Lopez. We'll bring you my conversations with them later on. Probably you might hear all of them on Thursday because the Royals played day game that day. And then on the Chiefs side, Daniel Sorensen, Tamba Hali, Derrick Nottie, Mecole Hardman, Jordy Nelson, and Cornell Powell. And these aren't like little 2-minute sideline conversations or whatever. Right? We got good conversations one-on-one with a bunch of these guys. And also, I think that some of these formats are a whole lot better for finding the personality for some of these players that you might obviously watch on a weekly basis. You might own the jersey of, but have you ever, heard Mecole Hardman talk for 8 minutes in just a one-on-one conversation? I'm not sure how often that's happened. And I really enjoyed talking to every single one of those dudes. And so over the course of the week, we'll bring you all of those at some point or another. Tonight, we will go with Mecole Hardman coming up here in like 20 minutes. I'll bring you my conversation with him because I thought it was a whole lot of fun. And obviously, he is a hugely important part of what the Chiefs are going to try to do offensively this year. And then also later in the show, we'll bring Cornell Powell, who you probably have not heard much from. He's, working along slowly to get up to speed with this offense and everything, but was really insightful, I thought, about what it is that he's working on and how he's going to grow into this role. So we'll play that conversation sometime probably around 9:30 or so. And then Dirty Dan Sorensen, probably about 8:30 or so this evening, we'll play that conversation, and he'll give you some stuff about the Chiefs' defense, what he's doing, why he's so good at being the guy that knows where everyone is going to end up being, the different roles he plays in the defense. Little teasers there, but we'll bring you our conversations with those three guys all tonight. Also, Tom Bahali, Derrick Nottie, and Jordy Nelson will probably start bringing you tomorrow, maybe Thursday. We'll figure it out. But certainly we were going to make time to make sure you hear those because Derrick Nottie was an absolute treat to talk to. Tom Bahali, an absolute treat. Jordy Nelson, also great. So just really, really happy with what we got from all of those guys this weekend, and we will we'll bring those along over the course of the week. Also at 8 tonight, Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest for our weekly Monday conversation with him. We'll get to look back at the first preseason game. Plus, got to chat with him a little bit up at camp today. And then at 9 o'clock tonight, Aaron Schatz of Football Outsiders will join us. He is the creator of DVOA and an incredible, just overall built up over many, many years empire there at Football Outsiders. The new Football Outsiders 2021 Almanac is out now. You can go check that out at footballoutsiders.com. And we'll talk to him about some stuff with the Chiefs, some stuff with DVOA, some stuff with where the league is at right now, the rest of the league all together. Just a truly massive show tonight where, where Matt and Aaron have to end up taking back seats to Mecole Hardman, Dan Sorensen, Cornell Powell. Also, I don't know what that means for both Rudy Salazar and Beards McFly, who are sitting almost the exact same pose right now of thumb on the bottom lip, looking at something. I don't know if you guys are synchronized radioing right now, but it looked like you guys were nailing it.
Joke's on you. It was on my top lip.
Okay, thumb on your lip. It was your thumb specifically, though.
I was looking at a tweet from Marcus Smart that has 7 shamrocks, a plus sign, and 4 shamrocks.
Is that an extension? Also, if anything happens on Twitch today, Rudy, you can tell me because I can't.
They're demanding
Trying to get
change in the show host? That's weird.
Yeah? You want to make it the Derrick Nottie show? Because it would be a better show. Wow. I would get it. I would enjoy that.
Jet skis.
He does.
He doesn't have time for this show. He's out having fun.
That's a great point.
Living his best life.
I'm excited. I don't even know Like the computer's
the keyboard
awake,
plugged in?
but I can't log in over there. So
Is the keyboard plugged in?
yes,
Are we sure?
yes, the light's on.
Okay.
And the cursor moved. It's just not unlocking. So if anything fun happens on the Twitch or the Facebooks or everything, the Facebook streams or the YouTube channel tonight, guys, you guys let me know, and you can bring it to the table.
Our Twitch has never had fun.
That's not true. Twitch is all about fun. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things from the preseason game and also some stuff from training camp today, and then we'll get to my conversation with Mecole Hardman. But a couple things that I think really jumped out from the preseason is that, one, Andy Reid clearly lied to us, right? He said the ones would get a quarter, the twos would get a quarter, the threes would get a quarter, the fours would get a quarter. And Anthony Gordon was playing quarterback at the end of the second half. Excuse me, the end of the first half.
He's a starter.
So Mahomes goes out for 4 plays and then leaves because
Not a starter.
I think he should do that. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Practice squad candidate.
I don't mind that Andy Reid is protecting Patrick Mahomes from unnecessary contact in a game that does not matter even a little bit. I think that works out great. But he did leave that first-team offensive line out there for a little while longer with Chad Henne behind it. And that was something, I think I suggested that on this show. It may have been elsewhere. I can't remember. I talk a lot. But somewhere I was saying, you know what, I would be happy to see Chad Henne end up being behind this first-team O-line for a while. Now, we've talked ad nauseum about the line and about how, Orlando Brown has discussed how he wants to, he's got to build communication with Mahomes and they have to figure out, what each other likes and how they're going to communicate. And it's a different story with Chad Henne back there, but it's still Orlando Brown's same offensive line teammates, and it's still the same offense. So that's worth something. And I think the biggest thing there is that the offensive line looked really good. It was a very small sample size, but what can you actually evaluate? Well, you can look at individual performances, which I think were pretty clean across the board, and you can look and see was there anything that looked anything like a breakdown. A breakdown in communication, in guessing wrong about who was supposed to end up doing what on a given play. First play out of the gate, excellently blocked. Clyde goes for 10 yards. That's how you want to sort of start a game. I bet we see something similar to that in week 1 at this point, if I had to guess. Once you get to the Browns, you want to convince Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney that they're in for a long day. I think that makes a whole lot of sense. So the offensive line looks good on that front. The one series that I thought was maybe the most interesting, specifically from the offensive line, was on their second offensive series where it was Chad Henne behind them. And I just watched Lucas Niang for like 3 straight pass blocking reps. And all 3 of them were a little bit different, but I was relatively pleased by it. And it's crazy, but Lucas Niang right now is the guy that I think you got to be most uncertain about across the offensive line, just because Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, I don't see them struggling. I certainly don't see them failing. And at the very beginning, and same for Orlando Brown and Joe Thuney, obviously, I highlight the other guys because they're rookies, and you would sort of expect, a little more of a volatile performance. But with Lucas Niang, and that was Mike Rimmer starting at right tackle to open training camp, and he was back sort of fully today. Andy Reid sort of even said it that way. Said, Mike is back today. Well, he was around practices before, I think the practice before the preseason game, but he did not play in the preseason game. But so, does Lucas Niang actually get that job? Did they give it back to Rimmers? I don't know. But watching Lucas Niang, there was a three snap streak there where one pass blocking snap, he just totally stonewalled the guy. It was just locked him down right there. The next one, it seemed like he got beat a little bit by some speed, but he recovered and just with one hand kind of punched the pass rusher around the outside, and Henne was able to step up into a clean pocket. The interior held up well as well. And after that, it was just a pretty, standard, nice pass blocking rep where it wasn't as impressive maybe as the first one, but wasn't as touch and go as the second one. And you got 3 good reps in a row there from Lucas Niang. I think that's all you can do. As I said, with you're evaluating from, I think that line played 11 snaps together, is how does the communication look? How does the fluctuating circumstance go? You're actually in a game, not on a practice field in St. Joe. How does the unit look all together? And then does anybody stand out for good or bad reasons? And I think they ended up with a pretty clean sheet from again, a small sample size, but a good performance across the board. So that's one thing. The other thing that stood out to me was a lot of the stuff that happened in the secondary defensively. And this is going to come back around to a main thing from today as well. Mike Hughes is the third corner, as things stand right now. I don't really think. I think it is Mike Hughes is like 3A, and then DeAndre Baker is probably 3B. Baker worked in a little bit with the ones out at practice today, with Hughes sort of starting there. I think they actually maybe even split reps, and then Baker got more work with the twos, if memory serves, on the long drive team drills that they did at the end, if nothing else. But Mike Hughes is the third guy out there, and that he was returning punts and kicks. And I had no idea that was coming. And based off the reaction on Twitter, it wasn't that I missed something at training camp. It's that they weren't really showing that, which is really unique. We were talking about this yesterday morning on Sports Sunday, and Blake looked up to see that he had returned kicks in college or kicks and punts in college, I think it was, which obviously makes sense. But the other thing that was kind of interesting, he had that one return where he delivered the hit, where he was sort of, I don't know that he was seeking out contact, but he certainly found it. He brought it to whoever was trying to tackle him, and it kind of hit me that, man, we haven't seen defensive players returning kicks on this team in a really long time. The closest that we could get was eventually Javier Arenas was the last guy that we remembered returning kicks on a pretty frequent basis in Kansas City. Last night on Sunday Sound Off, Seren Petro had another name that has now escaped me, that may have, I think, had like a kick return for a touchdown or something.
Hussein Abdullah?
No, but he did return some too, didn't he?
Returns, didn't he?
I think he did actually.
Yeah.
That's not what Seren said, but yeah, I think you're right. I think he did also. But for the most part, you think of it being the speedy receiver types, certainly, go back to Dante Hall and everything. But even more recently, it's been Mecole Hardman. It was originally Tyreek Hill. You try it with, Nile Davis obviously had a huge moment, and it's usually kind of that. It's usually the offensive speedsters that you find from somewhere, and Hughes looked really good doing it. Kind of running with a vengeance like that as a defensive player, maybe with a little bit of a different mindset. I don't know. I was impressed and sort of just tickled by, but he looked good there, and he also looked pretty good defensively. DeAndre Baker did not allow a completion as he was targeted over the course of the game. He also seemed to be pretty much all over the place, in a good way, that is. So I think you can be pretty happy about that as well. Does seem even more confirmed at this point that the plan for L'Jarius Sneed is to start outside and then kick into the slot whenever you go into a three-corner set, which is going to be a ton of the time. I like that. I've been very clear about that. I like L'Jarius Sneed being a guy that can move around and is showing showing offenses different things defensively that can make quarterbacks have to play a little bit of a guessing game. So I'm a big fan of seeing that come to fruition. The other thing, though, and I'm just going to lay this out there, I think as factually as possible, Daniel Sorensen is your starting safety alongside Tyrann Mathieu. Not right. I'm not saying right now. I'm not saying probably. I think it's pretty definitive. Juan Thornhill is a guy we've talked about so much on this show, partially because I think we're universally pretty big fans of his game, and his rookie season before his injury was stupendous. Last year, it was a little weird. He had a very heavy workload, and then it decreased, and then he played 100% of the snaps in Week 17, and then played a part-time role again in the playoffs. And, if you're monitoring a knee injury, swelling, it's acting up, whatever, well, you don't play that guy 100% of the snaps in Week 17, and he was playing late into the game on Saturday. And then today, there was a time during the team drills where Armani Watts came in with the ones to play alongside Tyrann Mathieu and Dan Sorensen. And Juan Thornhill showed up with the threes. Then in the long drive drill, Thornhill did work in with Mathieu and Sorensen, but Mathieu and Sorensen were clearly I don't think either of them took a play off on that drive with the ones.
They were the starters. Thornhill was just when they go to 3 safeties, he comes in.
And that was also only true like half of the time today. Beards, why don't you pull up the clip of Andy Reid talking about talking about Thornhill here, because I don't know if we'll circle back to it again later, but just Thornhill's usage today was weird. Thornhill's usage in the preseason game today Saturday was weird. I thought how he was used throughout the season was super interesting. As if anyone was listening to the show last year is listening still now, we talked about it a ton. I thought his snap counts were fascinating because, again, you think about working back from a knee injury and you think about, trying not to push it too much. We talked to Thornhill whenever I was up there one of the early days of camp, and we got to talk about his knee, his return, him getting to 100% physically, getting back to 100% mentally, and how the mental side was really the bigger deal. But also, he looks good out there. He looked great in the AFC Championship game. Didn't get almost any work in the Super Bowl as they were getting, pretty well burnt defensively. I don't know if Thornhill fixes it, but I was surprised he didn't get more chances to try to. And it's just been an extremely weird usage. He looks mentally back. Like, he doesn't look like he's favoring his knee. He doesn't look hesitant. He doesn't look like he's lost his top end speed. We'll talk to Seth Kaiser tomorrow. But whenever he came down to camp, that he was watching Thornhill, and he said all of that of like, he looks pretty good. But the way the Chiefs have been mixing him in has been genuinely strange. Andy Reid was asked about Thornhill's usage today and the fact that he was out there running with the threes some, and you'll hear his original answer and then a follow-up and a little more here from Andy Reid. I don't think here's a little spoiler. I'm not sure this clears a whole lot up for me.
No, I mean, he's just working back in and doing it. So they mix him around. So it's not, I wouldn't take anything from it. He's just working through it.
You mentioned to us last year that he was still mentally, even though he was recovering, mentally.
Yeah, so I think he's way better than he was. And then every day he's getting a little bit better. And he's getting more trust in his leg, which is the important thing. So he just needs to keep going, keep working through. And if it's bothering him, then you back him off a little bit and take a step forward from there.
You see what I mean? That it doesn't really feel like it clears a whole lot up. I mean, if you take it at face value of, don't look into it, then maybe it's not the worst thing in the world. But if you think he's going to be your number 3 safety at least, and boy, I mean, how quickly I've sort of accepted the new reality there, which is not what I would necessarily do. I like, in sort of traditional defensive roles, I like Matthew and Thornhill, and with Sorenson being the guy that does, his unique things, as opposed to the inverse of that, just sort of based on their skill sets and how the league generally works and all of that. But even if you think he's going to be your third guy, wouldn't you have him running with Matthew and Sorenson instead of Armani Watts? Like, if that is your expectation, those are gonna be your 3 guys whenever the season gets here. Mm-hmm. I really don't get it. And then also, I mean, we've talked about Tyrann Mathieu' cryptic tweets plenty over the course of the off season. Thornhill, shortly after, not immediately after, but maybe a couple hours after practice and the press conferences today, he tweets out a thinking emoji just on its own. And then later, very shortly thereafter, tweets out a sort of looks like a motivational poster or something. And over a picture of some clouds, it just says, "Decide to rise." And he tweeted out the image along with the phrase, "Just continue to rise."
He needs to stop tweeting rap lyrics.
That's the thinking emoji. Clearly, I think.
Mm-hmm. It's a chief safety's problem. They all do it.
They're too cryptic.
Sorenson's huge on it.
So,
I don't think he has a Twitter. Loves tweeting rap lyrics.
Just from like a secret burner account.
Yeah. Oh,
Like he and Armani watch share.
Sorensen has a secret burner account. Absolutely.
So, at the risk of, I mean, listen, again, we've read into cryptic tweets plenty as of late, but at the risk of overemphasizing something here, the thinking emoji and then the decide to rise sort of thing sounds like a guy who the thinking emoji is like, oh yeah, I still have to work through stuff. Exactly. And then if you're going, hey, just continue to rise in that context, it sort of, I think it stands to reason that you are riding, you're rising to try to rise above where your coaching staff is putting you right now. I don't know, man. It's just sort of a weird energy, and everything around Thornhill, basically since he came back for his from his ACL tear, like it's just all kind of had some of that. And it's not like he got hurt and then was a clearly diminished player and now he's disgruntled or something. He looks like his old self to me for the most part, if not completely. And, again, you want to give Dan Sorensen extra reps and extra credit because Spags knows that he's going to be where he wants him to be and all of that. That's fine. I mean, Dan Sorensen is very clearly like an NFL safety, like for a reason. And a guy who should get plenty of playing time. It just seems like Thornhill's spot is perfect to play some of that single high stuff, to be kind of your it's not a perfect phrase, but a free safety that kind of plays along Tyrann Mathieu, who moves around more. It makes a lot of sense to me. And the way that the Chiefs have been sort of using and treating Thornhill to this point, I'm not sure. I mean, Reed even there sort of says, you want to push it and then you can back off a little bit if it acts up. If you're worried about it acting up, I mean, are you just trying to play him as many reps as you can until it acts up to figure out where that's at and how you push through it? I don't know. I'm sure there's something else that would jump ahead of this on my list. But if you were going to say, hey, you can have a conversation with the player, the coach, the trainer, the GM, and everybody's taking truth serum, the one Thornhill conversation would be pretty high on my list, I think, just in terms of, hey, what's actually going on here? What's the plan? What's the logic? I think Spags is hopefully, I think tomorrow is assistant coach, like position coaches tomorrow. I think they might hear from Spags. We might get Spags the next couple of days, but maybe he'll give a little more information. But even then, I don't know, man. It's a weird one. It's a little bit of a bit of a conundrum that I don't feel like I feel like every day I get a little farther away from solving. So something to chew on there, and something also to keep an eye on in preseason game number 2. When is Thornhill playing? How long is he playing? Maybe the season will get here and he'll play 85% of the snaps week 1, and things will start to look better. But I just really don't know. He had the groin injury that popped up at camp a little bit, kept him out for I think a couple practices. I just really don't know.
And also, I mean, it's the reps with the 3 that are also like really surprising, right? Because like it's not like him getting some with the 2s, I guess. Like you can like you can talk into the, but like what's the like especially if it is about backing him off,
right? So yeah, but that's why it can't be that.
Yeah, why is he?
Because he's still running with the 3s.
With the 3s, and if the argument is, well, the 2s and the 3s take less reps, well, then just have him with the 2s. Where he's still working with guys who, in theory, he could actually be out there with, especially at the cornerback spot, right? Like some of those guys who are working 2s will also work with the 1s.
He was on the field with Dorian O'Daniel today. Yeah, I don't know.
And like we know the story with Dorian O'Daniel with this team. Here's the thing. Totally forgot Dorian O'Daniel is still on this team.
Me too.
You know why? Because Dorian O'Daniel has basically not been on the team since he was drafted.
Yeah,
he's had such a hard time getting on the field.
Despite being so much, like, it's just a physical marvel. But, yeah, it's exactly that.
But
so I don't know.
So, yeah, the third team reps is the thing that's more surprising than anything. I think he should be the one, like, getting all the reps at the 1. But, like, there's a part of me that's just, like, come to terms with the fact that, like, Sorensen's just always going to be involved in that.
Yeah.
And at least take away some of those snaps.
Yep.
But the 3s, That's the part where it's really...
Let him be the guy with the twos if you want to have him work on that
Yeah.
part of his game, even, which I was wondering, could it be some of that?
Because, like, that doesn't feel like...
But
again, like, put him on the threes doesn't feel like you're so much giving him a break and trying to bring it back, unless you're saying the intensity's just not there, I guess, which feels like that's not the
Weird.
case. I don't know.
If you want to go the whole other direction, if you want to have him run with the ones, twos, and threes, which is what we saw kind of again week 17 last year, and maybe we see that in the preseason some more. He did that a little bit on Saturday. He was on the field with pretty much every unit, I think.
Because you really want to get a lot of reps in.
If that's the thing, then fine.
Cool.
But why is he running behind Armani Watts at times? I don't know. I mean, again, and they rotate guys in. I don't think 2 reps of Armani Watts with the ones is reason to freak out. Armani Watts also working back from an injury, had a nice pick in the preseason game and all of that. It's just weird. It's just a very weird situation that I wish I had more answers for you on, and I will just give you the information we've got and say let's keep an eye on that one. I think that's going to be a saga worth monitoring. We'll take a break here on the one and only Almost Entirely Sports. Whenever we come back, my conversation... What?
Are you sure we're not the threes?
Well, we're the only Almost Entirely Sports, but that's still, you know, where does that fit on a radio depth chart? Different question. But we'll take a break. Whenever we come back, we will talk with someone who's definitely running with the ones, Mecole Hardman. I had a chance to sit down with him for a little while on Sunday. Yesterday. That was yesterday. Wow, today's been a long one. I got to talk to Mecole Hardman for a while yesterday, and I am really pleased with how our conversation went. You'll want to hear it, and it'll be next.
Want more Almost Entirely Sports? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook page. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
We're all hungry for a little nibbling of some delicious Chiefs talk. So here we go. Num 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 num.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Spent a lot of time at Harrah's this weekend, not for any of the reasons you would probably expect, but because there's a massive signing and memorabilia event out there, and got a chance to talk to a bunch of Kansas City Chiefs and a bunch of Royals. We'll bring them around later. But a few of my conversations from this week here on tonight's show, including and starting with the one and only Mecole Hardman, obviously a really important part of what the Chiefs are going to try to do offensively this year. So I talked about some of what he's done this offseason, where he's hoping to go as a receiver. And then also I make an impassioned pitch to Mecole Hardman about something that you'll have to wait around and listen to. Here's my conversation with Mecole Hardman. As if we haven't had enough speed over the course of the last couple days out here, we can add a little more now. Mecole Hardman joining us. Thank you for making some time with us, Mecole.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me, man.
A whole bunch of stuff going on with you this offseason. I mean, it seems like this has been a major storyline. You've gotten all these questions at press conferences also, of how are you going to step into an even bigger role here going into year 3. We just talked to Cornell Powell. I'm interested more in how much you feel like you've grown from where he's at right now to where you're at right now in terms of being in this offense.
Just more comfortable with the playbook, knowing different things, just more aware of what's going on around me, what the coaches need out of me, you know what I'm saying? So it's just more so just being more comfortable. And every year you get in, or every year in the league, you get more knowledge of the game and, get more comfortable. Everything starts to slow down. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. And, everything's starting to slow itself down, and I'm getting more comfortable in what's going on. So.
One of the most interesting things about the offense that Travis talked a little bit about a couple years ago that stuck with me is how much of the offense is read and react in real time. I'm playing Madden, and that's not going to translate to what you're doing in the playbook. How much of that is the thing to become more comfortable with, and can you explain a little bit of how that works? Don't get any coaches mad at you though. I don't want to get you in trouble.
Nah, it just just being aware of what your route is and what coverages it is and things like that. So when Travis said more read and react, is more so like I might need to stop right here instead of just taking the route all the way out to this out of bound line or whatever it may be. Like I need to stop on the numbers, or it's a hole right here between the defenders, in this cover 2 zone or this cover 3 zone, and it's all reading right. So you just got to be aware of what's going around, what's around you and things like that. So, I mean, it's definitely not like no gameplay type thing, you know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, it is a lot of read and react. You just got to know what's around you, what coverage you're in, what route you got, and what depth you at, and what holes that is in the defense that you need to be at, you know what I'm saying? Just to be on the same page with Pat, too, because he see what we see, too, so it just got to be more so like, y'all got to know exactly what's going on at the same time, so it definitely read and react a lot.
Sometimes it seems like Pat and Travis are communicating telepathically.
Easily.
Explain that to me. How is that happening?
I don't know, man. I don't know if it's just because they've been playing the same team for a long time or what, but, man, sometimes I be looking at the game like, whoa. Like, that was definitely not the route. And I don't know how he throwing it on time like that. You know what I'm saying? Like throwing the ball on time. I don't know. It's just, it's crazy what kind of connection them two got. But, I mean, I'm glad that they got the connection. It's good to watch on when we playing and everything like that. So, hopefully they keep that going for real. So,
do you feel like you're closer to some of that with Patrick in terms of being able to read the same things and react the same time, and maybe not full telepathy, but a little bit of kind of knowing where you're going?
Yeah, I think it's definitely that's going on in the offense. But I think more so with Trav, they run Trav run a lot of more routes than I would run. Like he do a lot of middle routes, stuff like that. I ain't gonna give our whole offense out, but he run a lot of more of the middle route. So that's kind of where that connection come in. More so like we run maybe outbreaking routes or a lot of deep routes, whatever the case may be. So, but it's definitely some connection there for sure. So,
how do you feel about Tyreek trying to race Usain Bolt? Because I got to be honest, man, it seems insane.
I don't know, man. I mean, 40 yards, I think it'd be a good race. Anything over 40, I don't think you have a chance. But I don't know if Usain Bolt's still fast like that.
That's true.
He's in his 30s now, so I don't know if he still got that speed like that. But he did run 4.22 like at the Super Bowl 2 years ago. So it's like he might still have the speed. But Usain sound confident. He said 70 yards, he'll put up one of his gold medals for a Super Bowl ring. I mean, Well, he got 8 gold medals.
He's got more. I don't think that's fair. I think he has to put up 8 gold medals.
Yeah, he got to put up like at least 6 of them.
Yeah.
And like, you know, but I mean, I think the 40 yards is gonna be a good race. Anything over 40, I gotta get the edge to. I don't know, man. That's crazy because both of them dumb fast. So I don't know. It's something I'm just gonna sit back and watch.
So you're in your 3rd training camp. Now, last year you guys weren't in St. Joe, obviously, but what do you do in St. Joe as you're obviously you're in the film and you're learning the offense. You're on the field all the time. I understand that. Whenever you're moving away, what are you doing with your free time?
Eating. Eating, napping, or you know what I'm saying? Because like we get our breaks, but then again, we got meetings and stuff like that too. Yeah. So it's really ain't that much you can really just get away and do. But usually we try to get some food or something somewhere else. You like go sit down and eat if that's the case. But most of the time you just eating, just chilling, probably take a nap here and there. But then after that you back in meetings. So no video game time. So I was going to ask you about the stuff with the Pioneers, and I think you're a 2-sport athlete now. Like that's what I'm willing to give you, but that's not for training camp time though. No, I mean I got my game at training camp. It's more so at night though. Like when we got when we get done, curfew like at 11 or whatever. So you got like a couple hours to play the game if you want to, or if you just want to nap or just watch film, whatever. So I'll play a little bit like at night, but nothing online. Maybe just like 2K or Madden or something like that. Something simple.
All right, which one are you better at? Which one do you enjoy more?
I like 2K better.
Are you a FIFA guy at all? I played FIFA for the first time like a week ago.
FIFA, it's okay. I think it's like, I don't know. You just got to really know what you're doing in FIFA. Like, I think you really got to study that game. But, I mean, I played it a couple times. I like more so the career mode in FIFA, like when you have your own player.
That's what I did, yeah.
Yeah, that's more better. But I ain't played this year's FIFA, though. I need to try to play it.
I love the career mode stuff. I think that's the best. Who do you play as in 2K? And then we'll let you go.
I play with the Trailblazers. David Lillard, like my favorite player behind LeBron. So I play with David Lillard a lot. The Trailblazers, and probably, let me see, who else I forgot who else I played with. I go play with the Pelicans. I like the Pelicans a little bit. I think the Bulls going to be nice on the new 2K that come out. They're going to be all right. Got to get them backcourt. I like to play with the other Grizzlies. So I try to switch it up, It's really about how you can play, not about what the players on. So I like to play with sorry teams, see how good I am.
I was going to say, I'd like you to mix the Suns, and I'm a Suns fan. It's ridiculous in Kansas City. But I feel like we made our mark this year, right? Like, I feel like there's some respect there to be had, but maybe they're too good for you now.
I don't know. I like Devin Booker, though. I played a game with Devin Booker, honestly. So I'm a big fan of his game. I definitely can play with him on 2K. But Chris Paul definitely there, too. But I was never thinking about the Suns might be my team to play with on 2K. Now that I think about who they got with Micale Bridges, they got some talent on there. I just gotta, I might play with the Suns. The Suns and Trailblazers might be my team.
They got the Hall of Fame point guard. They got the star. They got some shooters. They got the size. For me, this is worth the whole day. I would not trade that, for any of the memorabilia around here right now. Knowing maybe the Suns make the rotation. Mecole, good luck this year. Thank you for stopping by. Good luck with the Suns in 2K, and hopefully we'll chat again soon.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
There's Mecole Hardman, who will also now, of course, be moving to play with the Phoenix Suns in 2K. A huge win for me personally. And then beyond that, man, this is a recurring theme you'll hear throughout the week. But I love trying to understand a little bit better how much of the Chiefs' offense is so much more fluid than I think almost anybody really understands. Especially whenever you end up having that conversation about Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, as Mecole Hardman was willing to admit that they are absolutely telepathic. There is a telepathic power that has Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce on the same page that you go, wait a second, that wasn't the route. I think that stuff is great. And I'm glad that Mecole gave us some time to talk about some of that, because I think it's super interesting. Let's go ahead and take another break. Whenever we come back, we can break down a few of those things and talk about some other stuff from the week so far. That'll be next here on Almost Entirely Sports.
At JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, at Not That Rudy, at Sports Radio 810. Just do it already. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
I know all 3 quarterbacks on the Browns' active roster, and if you told me right now to give you any sort of mathematical theorem that required any amount of effort, I would fall flat on my face.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Where do you guys want to go? You want to talk about anything Mecole Hardman said? You want to get to some training camp tidbits? Do you have anything from the Mecole Hardman thing that stood out to you, Rudy? Or do you think it was a bad interview? Those are only 2 options.
That was a little disappointing that you didn't ask about the esports team.
I did, actually. Thank you for listening. That was our segue into the 2K conversation.
Okay, then
I specifically said the phrase pioneer. I told him I thought he was a 2-sport athlete now.
Okay, then I was pretty disappointed. Well, football is not a sport. I was pretty disappointed about, like, I think if you had the chance to talk to a Chiefs receiver, like, I would want to know about, like, the mindset, like, try to get in the head of the Mahomes-Kelsey connection.
Sure, like how the offense works and like how flexible it all is.
So I thought that was a little weird that you didn't ask about that.
How fluid all that is, yeah.
I can't believe you didn't ask him about Tyreek Hill's race with Usain Bolt.
Yeah, I probably should have. I probably should have mentioned that.
Well, I mean, Beards, he did. Obviously, Beards wasn't listening.
I hope both of you are happy with yourselves now.
We are.
I've got a roster of like interviews with people that you actually know, like good interviews that are going to come out this whole week that I feel pretty good about.
I'm sorry.
Why did you ask him to play the Suns in 2K?
It's just a big honking dump on the show.
It was a good interview.
Yeah, you know what? It's
I just
fine.
saw my chance.
Yeah, you're right.
Just decided to roll with it.
Shout out to Caden. Caden gets the show on Twitch for resubscribing for their 6th month on Twitch. He said,
really been here for 6 months.
I know. He said, I'm drunk and eating tacos, but have a good show. And dude, I hope you're having a good time. Man, is there a better just sort of buzz than an eating tacos buzz? That's a good one, man. Tacos are a perfect inebriated food, man.
I assume you're curious about the same thing I'm curious about.
I've no idea.
Beards, have you ever ate a taco?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I would have wept.
Okay.
I would have cried.
I just don't think I'd ever like heard Beards or even talked to Beards about tacos.
No,
I honestly wasn't for sure.
Now, Rudy, here's the one mistake that you made. Is you asked that question slightly wrong. It was a great instinct.
You're right.
Beards.
No.
When was the last time you ate a taco?
Probably a month or so ago.
All right, that's okay. That's a reasonable amount of time. It's just sometimes we ask that question and you're like, I was 7.
Hold up. As you were asking the question, he simply said no. So we clearly thought you were asking a different question. Beards, what question did you think Josh was asking?
I don't know. I just figured I'd just say no just to get it over with.
Beards, do you like tacos?
Yeah.
Okay.
He had one like a month ago, apparently.
I just thought when he said no, it was I don't like tacos.
I'm glad that this didn't end up having to be a bigger thing, because I would have melted down. I would have melted down.
I'm proud of you, Beards.
Good job, Beards.
It's been a while. Beards probably had taco more recently than I have. It's been a while.
Chaotic Warrior also makes the point. Like, tacos usually come with margaritas. A margarita taco pairing is an elite one. It is an elite pairing that I just don't. I'm not sure that there's a better one. If you wanted to go like, beer and burgers or beer and hot dog or whatever, you could do that. You could make that call, I guess. I'm going to open the bidding with tacos and margs because I feel like Sterling just then. I'm never going to call them margs again. That's a total Sterling move. By a Sterling move, I mean, you get it.
Yeah.
Just don't say Natty Light 3 times in the mirror.
I don't think I can beat that because you get a little pop from a good margarita. You get a little chips and salsa going. It's perfect. I feel like if you're looking to get a little something out of it, I don't know how many beers I would have to drink to get to the equivalent of like 2 good margaritas. But I think the answer might be like 50. I don't want to drink that much.
I do really like tacos, and whether it be a Corona or a Pacifico.
I don't think I've ever had a Pacifico.
I mean, it's a very similar style. Obviously, now it doesn't taste obviously exactly like Corona, but that same Mexican beer style. Very good.
Modelo, also pretty good.
Shout out to Costco real quick.
Right.
I think it's the Costco brand margarita and strawberry margarita mix. It's pre-made. It's ready to go. Just put it in the fridge and pour it. It's incredible. It is so much. Almost everything at Costco feels like it's significantly better than it has any right to be. Because they just sell you a bucket of something for $7, and you can eat or drink it for a lifetime, and it's incredibly good. That's just sort of the Costco experience. Not a sponsor, but boy, I wish they were.
Costco's a good place. I'm a fan of the Costco.
Beards, did you and Rebecca get a membership yet? Have you had this conversation
Yeah, we did.
again? You did pull the trigger on it?
Yeah, we've only been once, though.
Well, yeah, because you need to go once every, 3 months, and it's just sort of, you take your covered wagon like it's the Oregon Trail, and you fill up your covered wagon with 3 months of supplies, and then you're good to go.
As long as you don't get dysentery?
Dysentery.
Dysentery.
Yeah.
The problem, though, is then finding all of the space in the apartment to fit everything is the issue.
You've got to make some calls on what immediately has to be refrigerated and what doesn't. So Renee buys the 128 pack of Dr. Pepper. That's an exaggeration, but barely. And so
126 pack.
That's probably what it is. You put 4 of them in the fridge, and the rest of them you hide somewhere. And you just always have the issues. You can't do that with your 14 rotisserie chickens. You really got to haul through those.
See, what adults do is adults who don't have houses, at least, because you really can't do this in an apartment, is you build a Costco shed out back.
Costco shed, he said.
Costco shed.
Shed.
Where you
S-H-E-D.
store all your Costco.
We have a shed in our backyard. So
it's just a shed for Costco. That's it.
You can buy a shed at Costco for $14. You just have to build it yourself, and then you can put all the other Costco stuff in there. Anyway. I forgot that I was going to try to squeeze in an audio clip here. It's probably...
Well, we got 2 minutes.
I think the other questions I asked, so I want to have a chance to really break them down and really sort of just bathe in my own glory a little bit, because I'm a hashtag reporter again. I'll tell you, so here, let me give you a quick little training camp look back. There are a couple days left. I think it's tomorrow and Wednesday, and that's it. But today was my last day out there. The drive is a mammoth. Although I have something that I'll talk about in shot clock reviews whenever we do that next. It really has made actually my last 2 trips out there much more pleasant. It's a podcast with the narrative, basically. That's your short version. But it's a long drive, and it sometimes you got to do the math to be out there early enough, and you have to leave an hour before hour 15 from my house or so and get there, all of that. I'm in South Kansas City. They're talking to our friend Harold Kuntz of Fox 4. He's talking about living in the Northland somewhere, and it's like a 45-minute jaunt. I don't have that jaunt. But you make the trip up there and everything. But it has been so nice to actually be able to ask questions in person, to watch football with my eyes, to be around the rest of the people in the media that are all out there, a bunch of them up there every day and just sort of grinding through it. We'll talk about that with one of those very people, as Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest is just there all the time, and he is so very close to the finish line of training camp. We'll take a break. Whenever we come back, we'll talk to Matt about some of the stuff with Juan Thornhill, some of the stuff with the Chiefs offensive line, takeaways from the last preseason game and how that all fits together, and also how he's feeling emotionally as he looks to wrap up his time at training camp. Also, here's a question he asked me today. I had a dream. Do you want me to tell it now or on the radio? I said save it. We'll get that dream story next.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Center.
I'm Steve Lennox. Dak Prescott, working his way back from a right shoulder strain, was limited at Cowboys practice today. Head coach Mike McCarthy with his thoughts on Dak.
I mean, the biggest thing really is stay on course with his work. It's a plan of caution. I'm trying to come up with new words here, but I mean it's the same plan coming out of this. It's when he was shut down, you have to build up his volume of throws again. So we just really don't want to put him in a position where we can re-injure it.
Cowboys play their third preseason game at home this Saturday against the Houston Texans. Not known yet whether or not Prescott will play in that game. Cam Newton said today that head coach Bill Belichick has not told him whether or not he's going to be the starting quarterback in the team season opener in September against the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins are going to be without receiver Allen Hurns for at least 3 months. Hurns, wrist injury that is going to require surgery. Celtics and Marcus Smart agreeing on a 4-year deal. The extension worth $77 million to keep Smart in a Celtics uniform. Josh Hart also closing in on a new 3-year contract with the Pelicans that will be worth $38 million. News on both of those signings from ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski. A's and White Sox on ESPN TV. A's up 2-0 in the third. Matt Chapman, solo home run in the second, his 18th on the season. It came off Dallas Keuchel. Rays at home right now up 8-1 on the Orioles. Orioles enter tonight on an 11-game losing streak.
It's Alan Hahn, and Tuesday on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin, Week 2 in the Patriots preseason. We'll find out if Mac Jones can do anything to beat out Cam Newton. That's Tuesday morning on ESPN Radio.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
Lock your doors and pull up your socks. My mother used to say. I don't know why, but that's what she used to say.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
We are now so incredibly close to the very end of training camp. I said I had my last day up there this morning, but Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest certainly going to be there until the bitter end. Matt, there are a bunch of things I want to talk to you about today, including the thing that you told me earlier that you could either tell me at camp or wait until the radio show. I have not forgotten, so that will absolutely be happening. But the first thing I'm wondering is are you feeling, last day of school vibes? Are you sad to leave behind, the incredible commute to St. Joe you've been taking on a daily basis? Now, how does it feel knowing that training camp is nearly over?
Yeah, I don't want the folks of St. Joseph or Buchanan County to feel bad, but no, I cannot wait until training camp is over. And this last 3 days after the first preseason game, it's always to me like that last semester of especially senior year, but this last semester of school after spring break. If you didn't get it by spring break, it was over because you were certainly checked out, and everybody's checked out. I mean, today no pads. Wednesday is going to be a 10-10-10 practice where they're going to be tearing down tents like during practice. Everybody's so eager to get out of there. Yeah, this is just 3 days of get through it and get home.
Why do they continue doing training camp after the first preseason game? Like, if you're going to continue it through all of the preseason, fine. Or if you're going to do it until preseason starts and then go into practice mode, fine. But what are these 3 days for?
Yeah, I can't really tell you. I mean, I'm sure it makes sense to Andy Reid, but I'm with you. I mean, it would make sense to me if they just did training camp for maybe another week. But this last week, these last few days, always seem completely irrelevant. I mean, I don't know how much they really get done because I'm sure that the players are just absolutely bouncing off the ceilings. I mean, I would be. I mean, I certainly am at this point. I mean, good grief, I think we're all,
it's just
barely hanging by a thread.
Yeah, I mean, it's not St. Joe's fault. Beautiful people of St. Joe continue to make that point. It's not the school's fault. It's not the Chiefs' fault. It's just, I think it's distance. It's the drive. If it was happening, if they did everything from Arrowhead, maybe it would be a little bit. It definitely would be a little bit different because it's a quicker jump. But it's also just every day. It just continues on and continues on. It's a great trip for people to make for a day or two. I love that. But I have to imagine that the daily aspect is, again, as you said, just holding on by a thread.
And I get people are going to probably be listening to us and thinking, oh, these two elite media whiners. I mean, we'd kill to be going up there to training camp every single day and everything. And no, after a while you wouldn't, because
Right.
I mean, everybody Drew around has the same attitude, and it's not us. It's the team, the coaches, staff. I'm pretty sure at this point, even the university is like, yeah, we're done. We get it. Go home. We're ready for school to start.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you're right. Somebody definitely somewhere is talking to the radio right now and may or may not realize that we can't hear them, but or is working on a tweet so we can see it. And again, it's the grind. Grinds are grinds, regardless of what it is that you're doing. Like it can be fun for a little while, and then it's also every day. That's fine. We can all admit that. I think that hopefully the people who listen to this show on a regular basis, who have heard us talk on a weekly basis now for a good long while, can figure it out. You guys get it. It's all right. And also, if you don't think that it's worth us complaining about and, sort of back end complaining, that's okay. We'll move on to something else now, like the actual things that we saw out there. And I'm going to save your story for the end, because I'm giving myself a radio tease. I cannot wait to get to that. But the thing from today that I thought was most interesting is sort of the continuing confusion around Juan Thornhill. He got some work with the threes today a little bit, which was weird. Armani Watts got some first team looks playing alongside Tyrann Mathieu and Dan Sorensen. And then, Thornhill was playing late into the preseason game as well. Andy Reid afterwards said, we played the audio earlier, he said, don't read into it too much, but we try to get him more work, let him to trust his knee. If we think he works too much, we'll throttle him back. And I've just been trying literally since week 1 of last year, and the way that his snap counts fluctuated and all of that. He played every snap of the week 17 game and then played a very part-time role in the playoffs. I don't see a consistent logic to it. I'm not saying that they don't have something internally that they're trying to figure out, but I just really do not think that there's at least an obvious through line that explains their strategy with Juan Thornhill. Where are you at?
Yeah, there is no obvious strategy with it. I mean, and it's just perplexing overall, because Andy Reid says things like he did today that suggest, okay, then he's a part of it, that he's not 100% maybe, that it's still bothering him. Well, that's a little concerning. We at basically about, 18 months, a little over into that? I mean, if that's still the case, that it's still bothering him, then that's problematic. But, Juan Thornhill at the same time, I mean, he keeps saying, it's better. And, and even his answers have obviously changed a little bit over time, because, a year ago at this time, he would have been saying, yeah, I feel great.
Mm-hmm.
And he kept saying he felt fine during the season, but then it turns into, I wasn't perfect, but, I'm better now. At some point, what is it? I mean, and, I almost feel like we went through this a little bit earlier. I mean, we had similar cases. I mean, maybe the Tamba Hali and the Justin Houston ACL, where we didn't know what was going on there. I mean, we've kind of been through this before. And if it's a matter of the case that the knee's not right, then I don't know, is it ever going to be right?
Yeah.
And if not, I mean, is it, at this point, is it truly injury related? Is it performance related? Because, I mean, Thornhill did not necessarily have a great game on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
But as you said, I mean, if your logic is that you're going to back off a guy, well, then why did he play the second most defensive snaps of any player on the team on Saturday?
Yeah.
It's just, and then today, I mean, he got a little bit less work maybe, but it's with the 2s and the 3s. If he needs time off, is playing with the 3s in his best interest? I can't draw a line through any of the logic between what the team has said, Thornhill has said, the actions on the field, nothing at this point. I mean, no matter what you do, 2 and 2 does not make 4.
Yeah.
You add 2 and 2, and it makes 7 for some reason.
Right. That's the thing, because to your point about playing the second most defensive snaps in the preseason game, that's saying, hey, go out there and work through something, which has been at the very minimum, at least the strategy week 17 last year. Now we have a full off season removed from that. And it's been, hey, go play as many snaps as you can when the game is not particularly meaningful. I mean, Thornhill even talked, whenever we talked to him at the beginning of camp, about, getting it mentally back. And he felt like that he hit that going into the playoffs last year. And I think we all saw that. He looked sort of like Juan Thornhill pre-injury, at least pretty close to it, after it felt like he got his mental side of things right. So if you're playing these snaps to get right mentally, fine. But then when are you throttling back? And why is Armani Watts getting first-team reps over you? I think I just said what you said back to you again, and now I'm going to throw it back at you as if you can answer my questions that you just said you can't answer. But it's just so weird. Like, we get little injury games get played all the time, but this is the weirdest one that I remember. Even looking back at Tamba and Justin Houston and Eric Berry, like, there was at least, I think, sort of a through line, right? Eric Berry wasn't practicing every day and then not playing. It was, he's day-to-day just forever. And also invoking all those names around Thornhill makes me unbelievably nervous.
Well, and you phrase it that way, I mean, to me it makes me want to go to what is the most simplest argument, logic flow that we can see at this point. And the biggest one is that if Juan Thornhill were fully healthy and ready to go mentally and physically, there is no reason on God's green earth why he would not be the number 2 safety on this team. Mm-hmm. So the fact that he is not tells you that the Chiefs believe that something's wrong.
Yeah.
Physically, mentally, whatever it is, because the fact that he's not at the level that he was playing as a rookie, that's the only explanation that we can get, is that the Chiefs do not feel that he's as good as he was in 2019. Yeah. And if that's the case, then is he ever going to be? I mean, at this point, I can't make the case for that.
Yeah, I do think that's a good call in terms of being kind of the simplest thing, is that the Chiefs believe that something is wrong, which doesn't make it definitive. It's just that's clearly seems to be where the Chiefs are at. Outside of Thornhill, in terms of the preseason game, and we got a Chiefs football game. Now, Patrick Mahomes did not play Andy Reid's originally suggested first quarter and instead just missed it by playing 4 snaps. But the offensive line stayed out there a little while after Mahomes did, with Chad Henne behind the O-line. Did you see anything from that first O-line unit going up against a non-teammate group of pass rushers? Even noting that the Niners were not playing their first-team pass rushers. It was the Chiefs 1s against the Niners 2s for the most part there. But what did you think about how they looked together for the first time?
Yeah, I thought they looked pretty good. I mean, there weren't any, I thought, glaring mistakes from that first-team unit. Considering that essentially they were going up against at least 1.5, if not the 2 offensive line of the defensive line of the 49ers, then they exerted their will on the 49ers, which is exactly what they should have done. And you saw that. I mean, yeah, you would have liked to have seen Mahomes be able to take the team, make a little bit longer drive, but then Chad Henne comes out and marches down the field. So overall, I mean, I think that the first team, minus Mahomes, I think did pretty much everything you kind of would have hoped for. You'd like to see a little bit maybe more explosiveness when Mahomes is out there, but the offensive line, no quibbles. I mean, it wasn't a large sample size, but, I thought Lucas Niang looked like he handled himself pretty well. Weren't giving up really any pressures for the most part. They plugged, wide open a couple of holes for the running backs. So I don't see any real reason for first week out. I don't see any real reasons to complain with the offensive line.
I'm glad you mentioned Niang specifically, because tell me if you disagree with this, but for me right now, I think he's the guy I have the most remaining questions for, which is kind of funny just because there are 3 rookies on that line and then 2 veteran newcomers. But, Mike Rimmers was getting the first team reps right at the very beginning of camp, and I think we saw a little bit maybe of Niang working in before Rimmers got hurt, but then Rimmers has missed now at this point, certainly the majority of camp. He was getting more work today, and Andy Reid, I thought it was kind of interesting. He said that Rimmers was back today, even though I think Rimmers got a little work before the preseason game, but obviously did not play in it. What do you think about that battle right now? Does Niang have an extensive lead because he's been playing while Rimmers has been out? Did Niang just sort of tighten the race? Is it still Rimmers' job in your mind? And then also specifically with how he played in the game on Saturday, does that change anything for you?
I mean, I think it's definitely a feather in the cap of Lucas Niang that he's now gone out there against, a real NFL defense and held his own. I mean, that's a big question mark, especially because, I think there's less questions about Humphrey and Smith because these are 2 guys who dominated in the SEC last year. and then they came in and they've dominated in practice and at OTAs. There hasn't been any really slowdown for them. Lucas Niang, doesn't play last year. You got to go back to before he was hurt, before, in 2019, before you even get to, him dominating at any level. And he didn't once he wasn't at the level of those guys. And then you throw in that of all the offensive line, the one offensive line, people want to say that Orlando Browns had a rough camp, and I'll let you say that. I disagree for some reasons, but that's okay. Niang's had the rougher camp of anybody on that front line. And part of it's been that, he's had to go up against Chris Jones a lot. Well, you're going to have a rough camp if you're going up against Chris Jones. When Chris Jones is going around you, that doesn't mean you're a bad offensive lineman. If that's the case, then the entire NFL is full of bad offensive linemen. So this was a good test. There's more. He needs to keep proving it. I think it's still an open competition because I'm really interested to see, once Rivers gets out and gets some work, I expect Niang is going to be, the starter again this week. I think he's going to be the starter there against Arizona. It's when a team goes back to Kansas City and things start happening behind the scenes. That's when I kind of wonder where we'll be at in that competition. I still have gotten the sense that all things being equal, the Chiefs would prefer not to have to start three rookie offensive linemen. They'll start the three best.
Yeah.
So if Lucas Niang turns out to be one of the best offensive linemen, then if he's one of the five best, he'll start. If not, then Mike Rivers will be the guy. And I think we're still too far away to say for sure what's going to happen.
You alluded to this, and I think we probably actually talked about this on Monday, but since you brought it up, I will allow a little recap for people who might also not be fully, maybe you've missed 5 minutes of Almost Entirely Sports in the last week, and first of all, how dare you? But can you explain your logic there on hey, I don't think Orlando Brown has had any sort of disastrous training camp, and obviously he's talked about it some now, and if you want to unpack that in your own thoughts, I imagine that'll be good for some people who maybe have heard a little bit of the negative buzz without hearing the counterpoint.
Yeah, let's take the team periods by themselves. Has Orlando Brown had his hands full with Chris Jones? Yeah, he has. But I think he's fared better overall than Niang has, certainly, on that side. If you want to hold him to a different standard, hey, that's fine. But what I see, at least in the team periods, is that, Brown has generally been holding his own pretty well, and he's been doing things, ugly at times, but I think that's going to happen because he's not the smallest guy around, and it's tough for him to get leverage. And a great example of why I feel like that he's getting the things done that he wants to do is, there was a play on Saturday night where, Orlando Brown, he just basically got the edge rusher and pushed him away. It wasn't about, clearing him out. It wasn't about pancaking or anything like this. He was just walking him around the pocket and the backside. That's a lot of what Brown's been working on. And part of it's because he's trying to figure out what Mahomes wants, where Mahomes wants to be in the pocket. And the only thing Orlando Brown's concerned about has been just keeping that guy out of where Mahomes wants him. And that means that sometimes it's going to look like he's beat, and he's not. And on these one-on-one drills where he's probably taken the most grief, once again, he's been working on things that he's trying to work at specifically, and he's going up against the defensive lineman who's not just serving him up. That defensive lineman's been trying to win his own fight. And it's just that they're not fighting the same game. It's almost like one's out there wrestling and one's playing jiu-jitsu. Well, how do you determine a winner if you're doing two different things and guys are trying to accomplish two different things? I look at the results, and the results would tell you that Orlando Brown's had a pretty good camp. Niang's had a rough camp, but like I said, it's because whenever he goes against Chris Jones, he's probably going to lose most of the time. And the other guys, I think, have all had really good camps too, because when they're in their own team periods, they haven't struggled. There's going to be hiccups. Not everything's been perfect for everybody, but across that board, yeah. Brown, I don't think you could really quibble if you look at the work that he's been doing in the team periods.
Outside of the offensive line, which again has been the storyline, obviously, that we've been just absolutely shoveling in our faces for the entirety of the offseason, what was your next sort of storyline of interest from the preseason game?
The two positions that I'm really most eager to see how they shake out are going to still be receiver and the cornerback group. There's certainly some other battles and some other players that I think are interesting. But, after Tyreek Hill, what is the rotation of that receiver group? I don't know what it's going to look like yet. And there's a couple of really intriguing names in that battle for the last one or two spots. We saw again Saturday night, Cornell Powell's out there running with the 3s and 4s.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to call it that. I mean, I don't know where Cornell Powell is on this roster right now as far as the 53 goes. I don't know if he's on it. I don't know if he's in a roster battle. I don't know if he's just, it's a red shirt. We're going to try and get into the practice squad. All 3 are, I think, still in play. But there's other guys. I mean, Marcus Kemp's having a really good camp. Reese Fountain is having a fantastic camp and had a really nice game on Saturday. And both those guys offer something that nobody else on the team has, which is size.
Yeah.
We've talked about that if you're looking for that Sammy Watkins X kind of guy, I mean, Kemp and Fountain are probably the 2 best that really fit that. And, whether either one of them can claim that role, we'll see. And then the cornerback group. I mean, DeAndre Baker had a nice game. I think we saw him rewarded today with more reps with the 1s.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a little bit of rotation to figure out there, and how many of their corners are going to keep, how deep they go. Baker looks like he's really solidified that, and and Fenton, Snead, Ward. I mean, they're all in there too. I mean, Bo Pete Keys has been kind of fighting. Mike Hughes is definitely going to be a part of the 53. I mean, I can't keep more than 5. So one of those guys is the odd man out. Right now, as of today, it probably looks like Bo Pete, but things can change.
The Cornell Powell thing is interesting, and also either next segment or next hour, we will play the conversation that I had with him this week, and I got to talk to him yesterday for a good, I don't know, I've got my times all pulled up here. It wasn't just a little couple of questions. We got to sit down and talk for 6.5 minutes, according to my sheet here, and I enjoyed talking to him both about just sort of where he's at right now, and also kind of the point that he's gotten to, and the difference between right now and where he started camp and everything. And so that maybe artificially, maybe realistically, kind of rejuvenated my hope for him eventually figuring it out. And this is also kind of maybe damning with faint praise, but like he looked good going up against the Niners 3s and 4s out there. Was maybe able to make some plays, but it was in the fourth quarter of a preseason game. I do think it's obvious that he's not going to be their Sammy Watkins replacement in year 1 by any means, but I also don't know how the Chiefs are going to walk that line between, could Fountain end up providing more to the 2021 Chiefs, but is Powell the long-term investment they want to keep around? Do you have a best guess as to how they end up making those decisions, and where do you think Powell ends up kind of falling as of right now?
Yeah, I mean, it is really intriguing to me because, if Cornell Powell makes this team the way that it's been going right now, as far as the looks that he's been getting, the Chiefs are going to have to keep 6 receivers. And that has that ripple effect through the rest of the roster, because if you're going to keep 6 receivers, where does that position come from?
Yeah.
You've got the Darwin Thompsons, the Jody Fortsons, Bo P. Keys we just talked about. I mean, maybe a Darius Harris. I mean, there's guys at other positions that are maybe in those last spots, those bubble spots, that if you keep Cornell Powell as a red shirt on the 53, essentially, it's going to mean somebody else doesn't have a job. And and the Chiefs have done this before. I mean, Demarcus Robinson was largely that kind of redshirt player, although he contributed really well on special teams as a rookie, but really didn't do anything as a receiver that year. And that's not uncommon because, I mean, outside of early round draft picks like Jeremy Maclin and the Deshaun Jacksons of the world, or the freaks like Tyreek Hill, I mean, rookie receivers under Andy Reid just usually don't do much.
Yeah.
And I think expecting anything more from Cornell Powell was probably just, over expectations. And you're right. I mean, the upside for Powell for the future is higher than it is with a Kemp who's been around a while and Fountain who's in year 4 of his NFL career. I mean, that's just it. But who's the best receiver for this year? I mean, right now the Chiefs are telling us with what we see on the field.
Yeah.
Powell's not ready yet.
It's interesting. I'm glad you make the point about, like, it really, the list is legitimately Deshaun Jackson and Jeremy Maclin. I mean, even Tyreek Hill didn't do a ton offensively until at least partway through that rookie season. Then as a receiver, like, the difference between rookie Tyreek Hill and current Tyreek Hill is an absolute cavern. But, if fans got too excited too quickly about Powell, that's fine. If we got too excited, maybe that's on us. But there's no way that the Chiefs didn't know this was probably going to be the way that it panned out, because it's Andy Reid knows how receivers usually acclimate. So, I think that's probably a good sign for him. I'd have to think that maybe the Chiefs thought he could have an extra step from where he's at right now, but it seems like you would have to imagine that they knew that giving him extra time to figure things out and then try to hit that upside, to start really contributing next year wouldn't make sense. I guess the special teams point is an interesting one, though, because you start finding, again, those red shirt spots, and all of a sudden, it's like you said, it's taken from somewhere else, which also has ripple effects, not just in other positions, but also on special teams.
Yeah, and, the thing is that depending on what a player shows during the preseason, what has been the likelihood that you could get him onto a practice squad? They could clear waivers and everything. Mm-hmm. I would have to think that if I'm another team around the league and I see, Cornell Powell's name hit the waiver wire, why necessarily would I claim him for my 53? Because, he's a receiver who's been a rookie receiver who's been a camp in somebody else's offense. There's no way that he's going to be able to come in and make an impact immediately. Mm-hmm. Maybe you take a flyer, you think you can stash him on your roster for a year and develop it. But, depending on what he shows in the next couple of preseason games might go a long way towards determining that and whether or not the Chiefs would risk that. I can certainly see at this point, based on what we've seen so far, that, hey, maybe it's more likely than not that they could sneak him onto the practice squad. But that's a risky decision to make.
It really is.
With a draft pick that, although admittedly a later round draft pick.
Mm-hmm. That would be extremely interesting. I hope they don't end up having to make that choice. Maybe he has an awesome remainder of the preseason. But yeah, that is super, super interesting. You mentioned Mike Hughes earlier. Were you surprised to see him taking the first kicks and punts in the first preseason game?
I wasn't, because I even going back to OTAs and the limited part that we got to see there, Mike Hughes is not the most explosive punt returner this team has. That's still going to be Mecole Hardman, Tyreek Hill. Hill's not going to return punts, obviously, if they're desperate. Mm-hmm. But Mike Hughes is reliable as all get out. And I certainly at least have seen in training camp. We've seen a lot of times it's been Hardman and Darius Shepard that's returned a lot of the punts. And I think that's probably a twofold reason. One, Mecole Hardman probably needs as much work on punt returns as anybody. You just want him to get as much work as he can. And two, Darius Shepard, if he makes this team, it's going to be as a return specialist. So that's really his one opportunity. Darius Shepard makes this team. It's not as a receiver. It's going to be as a returner. But Mike Hughes, he just doesn't make mistakes. Like I said, he's not super flashy. Maybe on a punt return, I think he's averaged like 6-7 yards in his career. Doesn't necessarily have any big breakouts, in Minnesota. But he's just the kind of guy who's really smooth. He catches the ball. I've never seen him. I don't think I've ever seen him flub a punt yet. That's at this point for this team, that might be more valuable than the electricity that you get with some of the other guys.
Yeah, especially also you're talking about, hey, could this guy make the team as a return specialist? Well, we're also trying to get Jody Fortson on this roster. So there's a lot of, there probably aren't that many, expendable roster spots. Two guys that I would like to know your prediction on. One is Jody Fortson, and then one is Michael Burton. Who is making the roster? Are they both making the roster? Is one of them making the roster? What do you expect there, and how many years is it going to take for Andy Reid to maybe consider not carrying a fullback?
It's probably going to take a while, and by that time you'll have also had to convince Dave Tobe that he doesn't need somebody like that too.
Yeah.
Mike Burton, 99.99%. I think he would have to injure himself severely to not make this 53. He's absolutely on the team. And Fortson, I think he's done just about everything that he can. I think at this point, honestly, on those last few spots, it's special teams that's going to determine whether they make it. If you've got somebody like a Reese Fountain or a Darius Harris or a Bo Peep Keys that goes out and is making tackles on special teams and making blocks, and Jody Fortson's not, it doesn't really matter what else has happened. He's basically the fourth tight end at this point because Noah Gray's not going anywhere and Blake Bell's not going anywhere. They've got 3 tight ends on the roster already, and Fortson's not displacing either one of them, any of them, barring an injury.
Your percentage games have been incredibly successful at this point. You're giving Burton a 99.9 something percent. What's your Jody Fortson percent?
Man, I'm going to say 54%.
I can live with that. That's okay. I can live with that. I was getting real nervous, and you're making a lot of sighing noises that was incredible radio.
I was carrying it through decimals, and I was confused, considering a few factors.
But a better chance than not.
Yeah.
I can live with a little better than a coin flip. They've got the expanded practice squads again this year and everything. So a bunch of these guys because the first round of very small cut downs are tomorrow. Obviously, I don't believe you would expect anything surprising to happen then. They got guys they can move around injury wise. And I think they only have to move down 5 guys tomorrow, right?
Right. Yep. 5 guys tomorrow. 5 next Tuesday too.
So, I mean, no reason to expect that any of the guys who are actually on the bubble would be moving tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I mean, unless the only thing I could possibly see tomorrow is if there's a veteran that the Chiefs just simply know is not going to make the team, and they want to give him a chance to hit the market early and try and find another job. But yeah, tomorrow's cut downs will probably just be from positions of depth, where the Chiefs don't have a lot of injuries. I mean, I'm not expecting any offensive line guys to necessarily go because they've had so many guys banged up there. Probably tight ends not going, but other position groups that are a little bit more robust right now. Those are probably where the cuts come from.
All right, so whenever I got into the media tent this morning, you said, "Hey, so I can't remember the exact phrase. It was something along the lines though of I had a dream, and I can either tell you about it now, or we can save it for radio. What do you want to do?" And I am not a deeply patient person. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and wait almost 12 hours for this. What dream did you have that is worthy of telling us here?
And I suppose I should preface this by saying that the correct answer should have probably been, I don't want to hear it at all.
No.
Because nobody cares about your dreams or your fantasy football team.
I was much closer to, I want to know now and I want it on the radio. But there was never a thought of it in my mind of, I don't want to hear this at all.
Yeah, this had absolutely no sense because it was almost like a couple of dreams melded together.
Perfect. Those are the good ones.
I had a bag with 2 snakes in it.
Okay.
Which I have no idea why.
Sure. What kind of bag? Like a backpack? Was it like a briefcase?
Plastic bag.
A grocery bag. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're alive.
Yeah, we'd got them out of the garden or something that they were causing some problems, so got them out and put them in the bag. I don't know why. I did. And then my mother, who's no longer with us, was there. No idea why. Yeah. But she had a dress on and got like some drink all over her dress. And so the dress had to be washed. So she changed clothes and gave me the dress to put in the bag with the snakes. I don't know why, but that's what happened. And then we had to find somebody to wash the dress. And for some reason, you were there. I think there's some other people from camp were there too, some other reporters and things. But you had a poster board.
Okay.
And it had 6 reasons why your 6-step plan to washing the dress, why you should be the one to get the washing. And I don't remember what 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 were, but I just remember 3 was that you noted that your leg was sore, and then in parentheses it said groin.
I want to fill out steps 1 to 2.
I don't remember what the other steps were. I just remember that was the question was whether or not you could get the laundry done because, you had to go up and down some stairs.
Sure.
And the question was whether you could, that was your only concern, was whether you could pull it off with the groin injury. But you seemed to think that you could. My mom, bless her heart, didn't think that you could.
Oh, wow. So I had to convince her. I had to sell her on it.
Yeah. So then I ended up having to do the laundry. And then I had a nightmare. Well, the next part of the nightmare was that the bag with the snakes had been in my car. And then I had to be fearful that I had snakes still in my car because like the snakes had laid eggs or something. I was just determined that there was going to be some. And so then I had to find out where the snakes were and what was going on. I found the snakes. They were in a box. And Izzy the cat was in the box.
With the snakes?
Yes.
Just chilling?
Yeah, she was just laying there.
Just hanging out. Izzy and the snakes?
And then when I decided, okay, well, I'm going to get these snakes and get them out of the house because I just can't handle these snakes anymore.
Right.
I'm scared to death of snakes.
Right.
So then I tried to grab one of the snakes out of the box, and Izzy freaked out. The snakes freaked out. And then I got them outside, and that was it. And please do no one interpret this for me because I don't need some sort of Freudian breakdown of Josh and snakes and my mom. I don't know. I don't want any of your dream interpretation.
So you can just tweet them directly to me. I won't share them with Matt, but we would all like to see and hear the interpretation.
I don't want to know why your groin injury for some reason was in my dream.
That's such a good question.
I've never felt more like Nate Buchanan in my entire life, telling people my dreams and people who are in them.
I just saw Beards reach up and hit the mark button for I don't want to know why your groin was in my dream or whatever the phrase you just said was. And I do want to know. I want to know why it was snakes. I want to know why it was two snakes. I want to know why they were in a plastic bag and why the dress ended up in the plastic bag. I want to know everything about this. But I also think that the exact amount we have, the exact amount of information we have, just number 3 on the poster board and nothing else, is also sort of perfect. Wow. I feel like we've been blessed.
But I appreciate you, wanting to be there and everything, for my mom and everything. So
yeah, listen, I mean, if you ever need a dress laundered, I guess I could. I don't think I've ever washed a dress before, but I like
probably not because probably need to care for those things carefully. Wash by hand or dry clean or something.
Yeah, I don't think, and that's really not my speed. Like I'll put the washer on cold. Like I'm not an animal, I'm trying to preserve some of my garments and whatnot. But I'm not gonna hand wash things unless it's really important to me, and also it involves two snakes. And I like that Dream Me wanted to do that, but also wanted to provide full disclosure about my groin injury. I'm not hiding anything.
Full disclosure, and it was very detailed. The 6-step plan. I don't remember. Like I said, I don't remember the other 5 steps. They were solid. You were definitely in the running. Really, it was just a concern about whether you could get up and down the stairs with the groin that was the problem.
My ability to get up and down the stairs is only going to continue to become a larger and larger concern as life goes on, I think. So maybe that's a harbinger of things to come. Maybe you're the interpreter that's telling me the dream. There's some biblical thing. There are crows and pecking out eyes or whatever, and there's a drought coming and a famine. And there's a whole sort of biblical interpretation going on there. I don't know.
Now that you made me think of it, this whole thing had a very Christopher Nolan kind of vibe to it.
I say, number 3, I do have a groin injury. And then in the background, you just hear, boom, just Inception soundtrack starts seeping in.
Oh, I think we got something here.
I do too. I feel like if nothing else, a screenplay perhaps that someone other than us could write. Matt, thank you for, I guess, your Chiefs insight, but especially for the breakdown of the dream. Please let me know if there's a part 2, if there's a sequel, whatever. Let me know, and hopefully by then maybe I can stretch out my injury and actually take care of the laundry.
Well, I think the key word and all that was breakdown because I think I'm certainly having a breakdown.
And we're almost done with camp. You're almost there, Matt.
This was definitely an end of camp dream. I can tell you that.
That is 100% right. Thank you, Matt. We'll talk to you again soon. Good luck with the dreams and the rest of camp.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest. Go read his work at ChiefsDigest.com for the love of goodness. He just came and told us, let us interpret his dream. Least you can do is go follow him on Twitter at Matt Derrick and read his work at ChiefsDigest.com. Do you think the snakes were you guys?
No, it doesn't sound like me.
Just hit me. It just hit me. Do you think there's a chance that you guys were the snakes?
Why was Matt carrying us in a Walmart bag then?
I agree. He should have immediately dropped you on the ground and stepped on your head.
Did you know you can listen to Almost Entirely Sports anywhere, anytime? Well, you can. Just search for Almost Entirely Sports wherever you get your podcasts. You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports.
You know what, Mom? Why don't you take a second, stop watching Pride and Prejudice, and go kill an 8-year-old, huh? Wow.
Whoa.
No.
With Joshua Brisco.
Let me try that again. Hey, Mom, why don't you stop watching Pride and Prejudice and go drop off a box of snakes at the doorstep of an 8-year-old?
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
That rattle your cage, Rudy? Forget about
I've
that
heard
liner?
that one before.
Oh, we've definitely.
Oh, I've played that one several times.
That one's been played several times. But hey, that was an old ESPN Kansas City liner.
Yeah, that was.
So Rudy wasn't there for the context of that.
That was a Valentine's Day one, I think.
But it was definitely around it for sure. My mom needed to mail some snakes on 8-year-old.
Valentine's Day. You think of your mom murdering children with snakes?
I bet. Listen, man, I backed off. I backed off on the first part. Okay. They don't have to be poisonous.
I'm just going off what you said.
I know, and it does a bad.
Snake doesn't have to be poisonous to kill an 8-year-old. An anaconda is not poisonous, but it can swallow.
I think we went over all of this on that show.
We did. I know, but here's the issue, Beards. You know that. I know that. No, Charlie Carlin knows that. Nobody else knows that.
Your mom probably knows that.
My mom might know that. But that is the issue with your little happy-go-lucky liner strategy, is that you can have me out of context and blah, 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 kill a kid, and all of a sudden you play it back. No, you're going to do it again!
Listen, it was the only snake-themed liner that I have.
This kid was afraid of snakes, and he gave a Valentine to my little sister.
When she was like 8?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, yeah, I remember this story
they're both like probably 8, given that. So I think they're in the same grade or something. And I was just saying, I felt like my mom needed to really hop into action. And I went too extreme at the front end, and I very much acknowledged that. And so I backed it off. We found out that this kid's afraid of snakes. So I should just mail this kid some snakes, send a box of snakes to this kid.
Now that I have context, I 100% agree with past Josh.
Thank you.
Because here's the thing. If it was my niece, absolutely am I sending poisonous reptiles to this kid's house.
No,
100%.
No, this show, Almost Entirely Sports, has a strict don't critically or mortally wound any children policy.
I'm not going to wound anybody. That's what the poisonous reptiles are for.
He was afraid of snakes. So I'm just saying like a big box of like garden snakes, but they're all just sort of... You know what? A grocery bag with 2 snakes will probably get the job done.
2 very poisonous giant snakes.
No.
I'm with you, man.
No, I don't want...
I'm with you.
Don't do that.
We're on the same page here.
I feel so strongly that we're not. So strongly that we're not.
We may have never agreed more on anything ever.
I don't know why. This has been a very snake-themed day for me today.
What?
Earlier today, I watched
Did you try to kill an 8-year-old with snakes?
Rick and Morty, and it was the Snake Jazz episode.
We also still need to talk to Mick about his snake situation.
Pierce, you know about this?
No.
I think we keep it that way. I think
okay.
I'd like for you to find out as we find out, because there's some bonkers stuff with Mick and a snake.
Yeah.
That's a tease for a future edition of Almost Entirely Sports.
At this point, probably, yeah.
Yeah, Beards, I was going to ask you us to just take a break and then come back with Dan Sorensen.
Yeah,
I definitely do not want to clump all this together, because if he said anything here that gets picked up by some, I just don't want anyone to have to listen to this segment to get to the goods of what Dan Sorensen had to say.
Did he talk about snakes too?
Not that I could remember, but I guess we'll have to see whenever we come back.
Take the show with you wherever you go. Listen live on the Sports Radio 810 mobile app and 810WHB.com. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
We'll move pretty quick here to wrap up the hour. Aaron Schatz of Football Outsiders is going to join us here in about 10 minutes. But right now, it's Daniel Sorensen. I had a chance to sit down with Dirty Dan a little bit this weekend and chat about what he brings to this defense, what is unique about this defense, and what he's expecting in 2021.
First of all, I got to ask, being out here around a bunch of people, being able to do signings, see people at events like this again, bringing all that together, what was it like getting to see some fans that are, excited to have football back?
Yeah, and we're excited that the fans will be back too. We're just as excited to have them in the stadiums. We were in San Francisco, and albeit the stadium wasn't full by any means, but it's a lot of fun to have the fans back and to see them excited. It's fun for us too.
It's obviously also been a few months since you've gotten to hit anybody. And you got to do, other than your own teammates, that is, and being able to do that out on the preseason field for at least a little bit of time. Was it nice to get your feet in the grass again and maybe have a football game there that wasn't the one from February?
Yeah, no, it was good. We were in just long enough to get warmed up and feeling ready, but we got a couple more coming up, and it's fun to have preseason. We didn't have that last year, obviously, and it's also fun to watch a lot of these young guys get a chance to get out there and play and make plays and show what they can do, which is fun for all of us to watch.
One thing, you're known for some of the huge plays that you've made, but the other thing that seems to come up all the time is like just the sheer amount of work that you're doing in terms of the prep and the film watching and the studying and all of that. Can you unpack some of that for those of us who do not understand exactly how much goes into that aspect of the game and why that's something that you are known for and from all that your teammates have talked about are excellent at?
Yeah. No, there's a lot that does go into the preparation week in and week out, but just overall football knowledge, you're constantly trying to learn and to grow. Coaches the same way. They learn new tactics and new strategies and new ways to coach, and same as players, we're constantly trying to improve, to get better, to learn more, and that's a space where, your knowledge is infinite, right? The more you can learn, the more you can understand, the more you can pick up, the more experience, all that stuff allows you to be a better player, whether you react quicker or you can anticipate things happening. And so, and I enjoy it. I enjoy the game of football. I like watching and studying film and things like that. And, we've got great coaches that also do a lot of the prep work for us and preparing us, and then learning from some of these other guys like Tyrann Mathieu and some of these guys that really have high football IQ and knowledge and understanding of the game, and trying to learn from them as well.
Tell me about being a part of Spags' defense and obviously being a huge part of it, where it seems like he really is so such a big fan of having defensive backs that can do so many different things. Tyrann Mathieu, obviously, L'Jarius Sneed doing it as a young guy. You've obviously, you're a safety, but you have played that position in a number of different ways over your time here. What is unique about Spags' defense as opposed to the other defenses that you've played in?
They do a good job. Spags does a great job of using the talents of his players and putting them in the right place, but also allowing us to have multiple roles. L'Jarius can play the outside corner. He can play inside. Tyrann, obviously is all over the field. I have an opportunity to play safety and some weak side linebacker in the dime packages and whatnot. But yeah, they do a great job of allowing us to be ourselves and using our strengths to help the defense. But again, it goes, these guys that can play multiple positions, it's not easy, and they're great athletes and excellent at what they do.
I'll get you out of here on this one. You mentioned being able to play the weak side linebacker role a little bit. Do you enjoy different things about being in the box versus being the guy that's farther into the defensive backfield? How does your job change there? And is one of them more fun in the moment?
Yeah. It's something that I've kind of learned early on in my career. and had an opportunity when Hussein Abdullah was injured. I think it was 2016. Got to step into the role for a little bit and really enjoyed it. You get the opportunity to pressure, to blitz, a lot of man coverage on tight ends and running backs and things like that. But it's a very versatile position, and I think it suits me well, and I have a lot of fun doing it.
It seems like there are a couple of times where you think, I don't think Dan Sorenson's having a bad time hitting some dudes and playing in the box a little bit. Dan, thank you for making some time for us here today. Good luck for the rest of the preseason, and enjoy the season.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
There you go, Dirty Dan Sorensen. The single most interesting thing from that conversation, I thought, was him just calling it weak side linebackers. Hey, I play weak side linebacker in those sub packages. I think oftentimes we talk about box safety or whatever, and maybe he was doing me a favor by dumbing it down and make sure I knew what he was about to say next. But I thought that was interesting, and obviously, again, he's been an example of where Spags likes that versatility in the safety group, and I enjoyed our conversation there. I'm also looking forward to our next conversation. Aaron Schatz of Football Outsiders joins us next.
You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I'm Steve Lennox. Cam Newton told the media Monday Bill Belichick, his head coach, has not told him whether or not he'll be the starting quarterback for Week 1. Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy said no urgency for Dak Prescott to play Saturday in the Cowboys preseason game at home against the Houston Texans. Prescott was limited at Cowboys practice earlier today. Packers quarterback Jordan Love did not practice with Green Bay today. Love MRI on his right shoulder, not known whether or not he'll play this Saturday against the New York Jets. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, MRI on Love's shoulder came back clean. 4 of the 5 2021 first-round picks played their preseason debuts on Saturday. Michael Wilbon today on PTI.
I'm looking at all of them, and right now, Tony, what's amazing as a Chicago Bear fan for more than a half century is I'm not looking jealously at the others, because usually that's what I have to do. All of us in the ground behind, you see the river behind us, all of us have to go in jealously saying, wow, I wish we had that kid.
Michael Wilbon on PTI. ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski reporting Josh Hart closing in on returning to the New Orleans Pelicans on a 3-year deal worth $38 million. Cubs enter tonight on an 11-game losing streak right now in Cincinnati. Cubs in the 7th inning down 12-0 against the Reds. Big series underway tonight in Chicago between the A's and White Sox. 5th inning on ESPN television. White Sox a 1-run lead, up 3-2. Yankees hold on for a 2-1 victory at home against the Angels. Joey Gallo's 2-run home run in the first proved to be the difference.
It's Alan Hahn, and Tuesday on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin, we're continuing to react to Week 1 of the preseason, and Key will tell you who needs to step up in Week 2. That's Tuesday morning on ESPN Radio.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
I dream about salary cap stuff at this point. It's really sad.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Over the years, we've spent a whole lot of time talking about some of the advanced metrics that I personally find interesting. Frequent users of DVOA around here, even though I feel like I understand it correctly, I don't know, 80% of the time. The good news is our next guest can help us solve that because he made it. Aaron Schatz of Football Outsiders joins us now. Aaron, first of all, before we get into the Almanac and the Chiefs stuff and all the things I want to ask about, does anyone ever go like, oh, you're the DVOA guy? Does that ever make it into an early conversation and somebody then just nerds all over the place, praise you for the metrics you've given us?
I've been recognized at Starbucks before.
Really?
Yeah.
What was
People
that
recognize me
interaction like?
from NFL Top 10, from the NFL Top 10 show.
That's pretty good, and also has to be a very. I've gotten recognized a handful of times, here and there, to the point that I understand that a good number of times it's not the smoothest interaction ever had.
Oh yeah, normally I say thank you. It's kind of cool.
It would be weird if you were like, "Hey, screw you, man. I'm at Starbucks." That would probably be a bad look.
I'm not big timing anybody.
I don't know where that line is that you can start being rude to people in public, and there's like, oh well, yeah, he's super famous, so that makes sense. But I feel like it's far, far beyond any ground that we'll touch anytime soon. So I guess if you see Aaron Schatz in public, say hi and try your luck. Aaron,
be friendly and I'll be friendly.
That's also, I think, probably a good little golden rule for meeting people. I like that. There's a whole bunch of stuff I want to talk to you about, Aaron, and thanks for making some time for us pretty late here tonight. And the first thing, of course, is the 2021 edition of the Football Outsiders Almanac. 500-some pages of absolute delicious NFL goodness, some fantasy stuff, team breakdowns, and all of that. You can get a physical version of it on Amazon. You can get the digital version with an FO Plus subscription on Football Outsiders. Can you unpack a little bit better than I can of what people can get if they do check out the Almanac?
Yeah, it's our 525-page season preview. So you've got all of our advanced stats. You've got team chapters on all 32 teams. You've got projections for all the skill players and comments about them. And then discussion of the top 50 college teams going into next year.
And so throughout all of that, I'm interested on some Chief stuff that we can get to in a second. And again, you can check it out, footballoutsiders.com. FO Plus will get you the PDF you can download. You can read it in your browser. You can also get the hard copy. Whenever you're going through that process, and obviously you've now been doing that for quite a while, like what on a yearly basis do you end up finding yourself looking at and going like, man, this stands out this year? Or maybe there's a trend that appears, something that you learn having to go through that process on an annual basis.
I mean, some of it is that every year offense just gets stronger, and it's like an unstoppable force the last few years. Last year, it was the fewer penalties. All of a sudden, they were calling fewer offensive penalties, so offense got stronger. And so it's like, no matter how, high you make fantasy projections, it's like they can't be high enough. Now it's even 17 games worth of fantasy projections. So, the projections are all through the roof.
What does that mean for defenses? Like, as that continues to be the wave, like, do you think that there's a way that teams could be maximizing, just acknowledging that there's a ceiling that they can hit in terms of how much a defense can push back on an offense? Or do you think that it goes the other way? Do teams in the future start spending more and putting more assets into a defense, just trying to be one of the outliers that can make an impact defensively?
I mean, I think the wiser thing is to put your assets into offense first and foremost. Offense is more predictable than defense. It's more consistent from year to year. And so it's a better thing to build a top offense and hope that your defense hits that year than to try to build a top defense and hope that you can get an offense together. Now, what complicates that is the importance of one position, because you've got to have a quarterback.
Yeah.
And you've got to have a top quarterback to have a top offense.
Obviously, that all sounds very good around here. That seems to be more or less what the Chiefs have done, certainly in the Patrick Mahomes era. They're still spending some money defensively, and some places it's panned out pretty well. Tyrann Mathieu's probably been worth the investment, and Frank Clark to this point probably hasn't been. But another thing that I find interesting in terms of defensive repeatability, as you're kind of honing in on there, is that I've seen plenty of times people say that cornerback play and secondary play ends up. In fact, I don't want to push you towards it. The balance between the pass rush and pass defense, how much ends up being in one unit or the other? Where is the wiser place to be spending resources between the secondary and your pass rush?
There is a strong school of thought in analytical circles that the secondary plays a larger role than the pass rush in defense. The problem is that secondary play, especially cornerback play, is very inconsistent from year to year compared to pass rushing. So strong secondary play is more important, but it's harder to predict. So I think that where you spend your money is balanced between the two, because, you're paying for predictability with a pass rush.
And, that for the Chiefs' strategy in terms of how this unit's been built, they've got a bunch of guys in the secondary that are somewhere between reclamation projects and like draft lottery tickets. I mean, we're talking about Travarius Ward, who was an undrafted free agent, L'Jarius Sneed, who was a late round pick last year, Mike Hughes, a reclamation project from the Vikings, DeAndre Baker, a reclamation project from the Giants, Rashad Fenton was a 6th round pick. But they've done that with experienced safety help, and they've spent money on the defensive line, obviously, but as someone who has found myself more and more interested in cornerback play and acknowledging that it's volatile, it seems like Steve Spagnuolo has done a ridiculously good job of getting the most out of those guys, oftentimes being in more short-term sort of packets, 1 or 2 years, not huge contracts. How much of that do you think can be prescribed to a guy like Spagnuolo and the defensive scheme the Chiefs are running? And how have they piqued your interest in terms of how they have answered that question?
Yeah, I don't know. It's, still one of the great questions is how much do you attribute to coaching versus how much do you attribute to the talent of the players? And I don't think it's one that anybody has a clear answer on yet. I will say this about the reclamation projects. DeAndre Baker is a very different kind of reclamation project than lower round draft pick.
Yes.
That's a guy with first round talent who had off-field issues. And the Chiefs were willing to take a chance on him when other teams were not because of the off-field issues. But that's a very different kind. If he can live up to his original potential, then you've got a star.
Yeah. And that it's also kind of that balance of a couple first rounders and then a couple later round guys, and maybe they seem to fit a similar physical prototype for Spags, which is interesting. But you're right, coming from extremely different places in terms of original talent and everything. What else have you found either on the defensive or the offensive side whenever you guys went in through the Chiefs preview? Again, people want to check out the whole thing. You can go grab the Almanac. You can get all the information at footballoutsiders.com. The physical version you can get on Amazon. The digital version you can get online. I don't know where else you would get a digital version of something, so online makes a lot of sense. But what do you think about what the Chiefs have done? Obviously, the O-line overhaul this offseason has been a huge story, keeping Patrick Mahomes upright after that Super Bowl. I saw you wrote about how, everyone feels emotions in decision-making, and the Chiefs certainly took their emotions and turned it into a totally new offensive line for 2021.
Yeah, I think one thing about the Chiefs that's interesting, and you see this also with teams like the Rams, is that it's almost like the off-ball linebacker position is just like an afterthought. Like, I mean, nothing against Willie Gay, but it's clear that for a lot of smarter teams, like they've put their defensive money in the secondary and the pass rush and not the off-ball linebackers. And the Chiefs are honestly fine to have you run on them because they know that even with a bad run defense, it's rare that opponents will actually be more efficient running the ball than they will be passing. So they would rather stop the pass than stop the run. As far as the offense, I mean, you're right. The big story is the offensive line and the fact that they're going to very likely move towards more man blocking rather than zone blocking, which is interesting because it kind of goes against type for Andy Reid. Yeah. But that's what fits the offensive linemen that they have. And my God, there's so much depth now in the interior offensive line. Like, they are really protected against injury on the interior. There's like extra guards and centers just like filling up the locker room. Tackles, that not so much with the extras, but guards and centers they've got.
What did you make of the Orlando Brown trade? I know there were lots of different people using lots of different calculators to figure out the draft value and all of that, but also the idea that, that Brett Veach's big trade before this one was the Frank Clark trade, which was a lot of draft capital plus the contract right away. And with Orlando Brown, they make the trade, but he's going to play out the last year of his contract, and then they can, tag him next year and then figure out a long-term deal if they want to. That seems to me a relatively unique strategy that both sides seem okay with. What did you make of the specifics of that decision?
I thought it was a good deal because it was exactly what they needed. I mean, it's interesting because they made a trade with essentially, according to our numbers, their biggest competitor.
Yeah.
I mean, according to our numbers, the Ravens are the number one competition for the Chiefs. So that's sort of interesting. But, you're essentially trading the value of those first-round picks with their low salaries for assuredness. Like, you already know what Orlando Brown is, whereas you take a guy with whatever the 31st pick in the draft, you don't know if he's going to be able to be that good and how long it's going to take him to be that good. And the Chiefs wanted an offensive lineman now.
Right.
They didn't want a guy who was going to take, who's going to be good in 2023. Like, they needed a guy who was going to be good now. So I think it was a good trade.
Something nationally, I saw you tweet about this, and I really appreciated your perspective on it. David Coley was saying that he's not going to be going for it on fourth downs if he's not feeling it. And you made the point on Twitter that coaches almost never seem to go the other way of, I am going to go for it unless I'm not feeling it. Obviously, and feel is not a quantifiable thing, but even acknowledging that's always going to be a part of the decision-making process. Are we doomed to just watch coaches default to kicking for the rest of time, or is that a shift that we might see over a number of years?
It's a shift we've already seen in the last 3 years. We have not seen the shift to the point that the analytics people like me would like to see it get to, but we have absolutely seen a shift. We have a stat called aggressiveness index, and it looks at how aggressive coaches are on fourth down compared to a baseline that's based on the last 20 years of the NFL. And the average is 1. And that's the average for like the last 20 years. Last year, 30 out of 32 teams were above 1. So there's no question coaches are more aggressive now than they used to be. And the Eagles winning the Super Bowl 4 years ago did a lot to change things. Andy Reid, in particular, started his career as one of the most conservative coaches in the league, and now he is one of the more aggressive coaches.
Do you think that there's, I guess, what do you think is playing into that? Is it just more information that is sort of slowly being absorbed and teams are seeing it work more? Is there another sort of phase of analytics that you think are going to end up in the game that are going to continue to move sort of that iceberg?
I mean, the first thing is seeing a team have success with it and win a Super Bowl with it helped a lot of people to open up to the ideas that the analytics people were trying to push. And then with that, you've seen teams like Baltimore be successful with it, and that's helped teams open up to it. It's still not to the point that we would like to see it at, but it is much more, teams are much more aggressive than they used to be. I mean, the big wave of analytics is not convincing coaches to go for it on fourth down. We're already starting to get there. It's going to be all that charting data that comes from the chips and the pads, all that next-gen stats data.
Yeah.
It's like a fire hose of data that you have to, like, is slamming you in the face, and you have to figure out how to drink it.
And I guess that, you can hurt yourself trying to drink out of a fire hose. What is the, if you're going to say, hey, for people that would like to maybe take a little bit of a sip off of the side of the fire hose, what's the next thing that you think is interesting that you can say, you know what, you've got some fourth down aggressiveness that's relatively easy, I think can be relatively consumable for a lot of fans. Is there something with EPA? Is it going back into your DVOA and learning that more? Is there another thing that we're not even really talking about that you think, hey,
Well,
you know what, this could be the
there's what
future?
there is for average fans. There's what there is for average fans who are interested in analytics. The fact is, most of that data from the chips and the pads is not publicly available.
True, fair, right.
Right? So there's so much that you can learn as an average fan, whether it's the expected points added models or using DVOA at Football Outsiders. There's so much you can learn as a fan, but what the teams have access to is far beyond what we have access to. And I mean, I think, there's so many questions that I would like answered, starting with, is there a way to measure cornerback play that's actually consistent from year to year?
Right.
Right? If cornerback play is more important than pass rushing, is there a way to measure cornerbacks that actually makes them predictable so that you know you're getting the best one? I mean, that's just one thing that we could learn, but there's just so much. Do running backs truly have value?
Yeah.
Is there a best way to grade offensive linemen? How important are offensive linemen working together? Where's the trade-off between improving your offensive line, like improving a specific lineman, versus the importance of continuity with the players having experience working together? Is there a certain point at which the experience is more important than improving a single lineman?
With all of those as questions that we hope to be able to get answers to in the future at some point, with that being said, what frustrates you the most right now in terms of stuff that is out there that you feel like people miss, or in sort of general NFL evaluation right now that you're trying to help maybe fix in terms of how we talk about it?
I mean, the fact is that we still, there's still, I think, a misunderstanding of the positional value. The fact that the off-ball linebackers aren't as important as the pass rushers, the fact that the running backs aren't as important as wide receivers and offensive linemen. You see, I mean no disrespect to NFL players, but when you see the NFL 100 list on the NFL Network, and there's so many running backs voted high, you just want to be like, you're scratching your head, and you're scratching your head about some of the results on that list. Like, how can the players see? I understand in some ways it's because running backs are such great athletes, and I know the hard work that goes into being that good. But unfortunately, when it comes to actual value, they just don't have the value of other positions.
We talked about that here so much leading up to the 2020 draft, and then the Chiefs took Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 32. And I'll give you this as sort of a background of where I was coming from. I was so confident they weren't going to draft the running back at the end of the first round because I thought the front office was going to take some of those things into account. I said I'd be shocked if they did. In fact, I'd be so shocked that I'll put out a taser bet here, which is something that ended up in my life for reasons that I cannot fully explain because I have bad judgment. And at some point before this upcoming season, one of my co-hosts has to end up tasing me to punish me for my terrible bet and terrible decision making. No one else was betting anything. I was just a moron. And so we spent a ton of time in that, value of running backs conversation. And, I know Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to have an excellent year this year behind a great offensive line, which is obviously a huge factor. I have tried and failed many times, I think, to try to explain where I'm coming from and in terms of the value of running backs and how it gets overrated, as you've sort of pointed out there. What is your Cliff's Notes argument to people who still may not be convinced?
It's not that running backs aren't great. It's that too many of them are great. It's that you can find great ones in late rounds, or you can find great ones even undrafted. There's so many good running backs. That's the reason why running backs don't matter that much. It's not that the great ones aren't great. It's that the good ones are also great.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at the importance of the running game, the fact that the passing game is more important than the running game, the importance of the offensive line to making the running game go, you just see a lot of reasons to believe that the difference between different running backs is just small.
I hope that makes sense to people, because it's very I will say, in my experience over the last year and change, it's been very, very difficult to make that case and to not come across as someone who hates all running backs, when in reality, you can have love for all running backs. But like you said, they're all kind of bunched together. I like that a lot. Before we let you go, Aaron, when you look at the AFC West, we always spend some time in the offseason talking about the Chargers. Obviously, the bar you set earlier for great offenses and needing to have great quarterbacks. The Broncos don't have one. Whatever you think of Derek Carr, he's not a great quarterback, even if he's a good one. But the Chargers might. What do you look at when you see the rest of the AFC West and how much they may or may not be able to challenge the Chiefs this year?
Well, we are less high on the Chargers than conventional wisdom. In fact, I would say the Chargers are probably the team where we are under the market by the biggest amount. The fact is, in general, quarterbacks take a leap forward in their second year. But that's usually because in their first year, they suck.
Right?
So when you're as good as Herbert already was, you don't tend to take a leap in your second year. The best rookie quarterbacks we've ever measured, on average, were a little worse in their second years because they already were so good that, like, central tendency was like a stronger pull for them than a second-year improvement. And then on defense, there's this belief that Brandon Staley's going to walk in and work miracles like he did with the Rams. But there's no evidence. The sample evidence that Brandon Staley works miracles is one, just last year.
Right.
And the Rams were already a better defense than the Chargers are. And the Rams had Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. And I mean, no disrespect to Joey Bosa or Derwin James, but those guys are not Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey.
So, I mean, whenever you say under the market, like, what is the sort of adjusted expectation for the Chargers? And are they still number 2 in the AFC West for you guys, but just a larger distance behind the Chiefs, or are they falling down the division?
No, we have them 4th. We have them 4th in the AFC West. We like Denver because in our projections, we ran half the simulations with Locke and half with Bridgewater. So we would have them lower if they actually start Locke for the beginning of the year. But their defense, they've added, between the return of Von Miller and the signing of guys like Fuller and Darby, they've added a ton of talent on defense. So we like their defense to be really good. And if Bridgewater's the offense, should be nice and, a little bit below average. But and then the Raiders are the most boring team in the league, which is a shock. It's a shock to say that about the Raiders. Historically, the last thing Al Davis would ever want his team to be is boring, but they are like the most average team in the league by our numbers. They're slightly above average on offense. They're slightly below average on defense. Like, it's year 4 of the Gruden administration. Where's the championship they were promised? I don't know, but we do like them better than the Chargers this year.
Aaron, I think that is incredibly interesting. I've been reading and loving Football Outsiders for a very long time, and I'm excited to get to talk to you here. Appreciate your time, appreciate your insight, and appreciate the work you guys do there at Football Outsiders. Again, if you want to check out the Football Outsiders Almanac 2021, 525 pages of football glory. The physical edition, you can buy on Amazon. You can get all the information, all the different options you have and everything at footballoutsiders.com. But you can also get it with the FO Plus subscription for footballoutsiders.com. There's the on-field stuff, the fantasy stuff. Is there anything I've missed in terms of what you're offering to people and where they can get it?
No, you talk a lot about FL Plus. So, yeah, we have our preseason fantasy tool to adjust it to the rules of your league. We have weekly fantasy projections. In season, we have picks against the spread. We have a big database of DVOA that goes all the way back to 1983. You get all that stuff in an FL Plus subscription, plus you get the book.
And Aaron will be even nicer to you if you meet him in a Starbucks. If you say that if you have the almanac with you, if you carry it into a Starbucks, he'll probably sign it and again be just incredibly nice to you in person. Thank you, Aaron, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show.
Aaron Schatz of Football Outsiders. Again, FO Plus, the amount of stuff that Football Outsiders has. If you listen to this show enough to love the analytic side of things as much as we do, and to think that everything that they do as they dig into numbers and also find a way to make it applicable, and not just have it be a fire hose of data. It's very, very hard for me to say that anybody does it better than Football Outsiders does. So check out the Almanac and everything they do at footballoutsiders.com.
Want more Almost Entirely Sports? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook page. You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports.
Unbutton, unbutton, unbutton. Zip.
With Joshua Brisco. on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Thanks again to Aaron Schatz for joining us. Again, please support their work at Football Outsiders. It's some of the best in the business, but also, can you guys imagine how different, or just the vibe out of the gate would have been if Beards would have played that liner last segment?
I should have played the one about the snakes and an 8-year-old.
Killing an 8-year-old? You might have hung up. That one, because that one's just too much.
That's hard to come back from.
That one is too much. That would have been. Sometimes, like great comedians say they'll go bomb on purpose to start and try to win the audience back.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I would like to get a laugh and then to keep getting laughs and to only ever get laughs and never have to feel the pangs of rejection.
Yeah.
That's not how my life has gone, of course.
Nope.
But I would prefer it to be that way. We have another Kansas City Chief that I got to talk to this weekend. I'll also give a big shout out to Brad Peterson from ADA, who helped organize all of this and was just. There were a couple of times Tom Bahali stood up and he came over and said, "Hey, Mecole Hardman's ready to come talk to you. You want to talk to Mecole Hardman?" I was like, no, I would love to do that. Thank you, Brad. So shout out to Brad from ADA and all the folks up there at Harrah's and the giant signing that they had this weekend. It was a hectic time, but one I was very pleased with our end results from. And we just talked about Cornell Powell a little earlier in the show with Matt Derrick. I mean, I don't know, a non-flashy training camp, I guess, kind of as his offseason, his preseason has progressed, just now getting into the NFL and just getting his start in the Andy Reid offense. And I wanted to know, what was the transition like after having kind of a big, one big year at Clemson, the Chiefs bring him in. He's making a transition from a very pro-style organization, not just the offense, but the entire behemoth of Clemson football. Don't tell Dabo, of course, but they make money. And he went from Clemson to Kansas City, being championship caliber on both of those organizations, but offensively very different, and a big mountain to climb. Do you have a joke to make, Rudy? It seems like you have a joke to make.
Yeah, I was gonna say downgrade in some ways because at Clemson he had a slide.
Here's Cornell Powell, my conversation with him about being a rookie in the NFL, being a rookie wide receiver in Andy Reid's offense, and where he's going to go throughout the remainder of his rookie campaign.
Got a chance now to chat with one of the new young weapons in the Kansas City Chiefs offense, Cornell Powell, out here with us. Cornell, first of all, man, you got to actually get out there and make some real stuff happen late in that game last night. What was it like after all the training camp and everything to get out there on a field against another team and to make some plays?
It's finally good to have some real football, after camp, just going against your own teammates. It's finally good to go against another team and showcase, all that you learn, all that you can do on the field, on the big stage. So going out there, then my group, we end up having a 2-minute situation to go win the game. So it took from practice to make it a real game situation. So it was good to execute that and come out with the score and then eventually come out with the victory. So.
You are in a notoriously difficult position right now, entering an Andy Reid offense as a rookie. I mean, everyone has to do it as a rookie, I guess, unless you're traded in or whatever. But I mean, you're coming from Clemson with Trevor Lawrence and with Dabo, and you come from a very professional sort of collegiate environment. But then into this with, Andy Reid's training camps, notoriously fast-paced and quick-moving. What's that transition been like for you so far?
I could definitely say Clemson prepared me for this. Like you said, just how we go about handling our business day in and day out. Every day you got to bring it. Every day you got to go out there and improve yourself. So, and then being around all this talent that we have on offense, it just makes me elevate my game more. And it's just a blessing. Then Coach Reid is just such a great guy, a great coach, and everyone, all the parts around him, it makes us great. So just trying to go out there and do my part and, help the team any way I can.
Was there something that you learned about Andy Reid once you got here that you didn't recognize or assume about him, from just sort of knowing who he was from afar?
He's a down-to-earth guy. He demands the best out of you, but at the same time, he's not a very aggressive. He doesn't do it in an aggressive way. He knows how to bring you to the side and make his point. When he speaks, you listen, and he doesn't make any jokes. There's not any suggestions about it. So you just go out there, he's been in this game a long time, so he knows what he's talking about. So if you do everything that how he wants it done, eventually you're gonna be great. So.
I mean, also, we hear all the time about the playbook, right? Like, and, for both of our sakes, I'm not going to try to ask you to, diagram anything for me, right? But whenever you are trying to learn, the new scheme, the terminology, but also something that Travis Kelce's talked about in press conferences before, there's an element, I don't know if you're there yet, I don't know when that comes into the playbook, but you're reading and reacting so much, in real time. I don't know if that was a part of the offense at Clemson. I don't know how much of that you've sort of seen here in Kansas City, but it's super interesting to me.
I can definitely say that's probably the biggest difference between college and NFL. When you get out there in the NFL, you're really just playing off of feeling and reaction. You just going out there and just balling, man. Just being a ball player, being smart, and just getting to the open zones, open areas and stuff. More so in college, it was, you do what's on the paper. You run the route concept, and if you get it, you get it. But here you could really be creative in your route running, be creative in how you get open, and ultimately, as long as you catch the ball, you can go back to the drawing board later. But you definitely have more freedom to, be yourself within the game. So it's definitely different.
I don't know if you heard this from the Chiefs through the pre-draft process and everything, but either then or now, have you gotten a feel of what it was that made the Chiefs like your game from Clemson and why you ended up here in Kansas City?
We have a lot of speed up and down the field. Then we got Travis. He takes up the middle of the field. So they needed a guy, or they want a guy who can win that one-on-one matchup on the backside, take some attention away from 10 and Trav, so they won't have to get doubled every play. Then you got Mecole running out there, Pringle, who does all the dirty work. So just trying to fill my void and be that one-on-one big target receiver who can go out, make a big play, and and beat my man every down. So.
What was the growth like? I mean, we're still, got camp tomorrow and still one preseason game and all of that. But I mean, from where you were day one of training camp to now, what has changed? What feels different in still a very short period of time?
Just my knowledge of the game, my intelligence, level of speed play, gameplay, and just being able to go out there and feel more comfortable after every day, learning after you get a good grasp of the playbook and then you understand the concepts of the play and not just a certain position, it makes everything so much easier so you can go out and play off reaction and play off instinct. So.
I'll let you go on this one, but I mean, you mentioned all the guys in the receiver room and all the pass catchers together, really, because you got to include Travis and the rest of the tight ends and all that. But what have they been able to impart on you directly, or what have you been able to take from them? It's not just from the coaches, not just from Coach Reed, but from the other guys in your receiver room where you've learned, oh man, that right there is something I gotta strive for.
Just work ethic, just playing fast, playing free, and just going out there and giving it your all, learning how to push past the finish line, and then just go dominate each and every play.
Last question. Eric Bieniemy is an attraction at training camp whenever that volume goes up. Have you gotten a good rapport with Eric Bieniemy yet? Has he had to shout anything at you, maybe not fit for children's ears on the sidelines?
Man, he's going to definitely push you to your max, and then he want more than that. So he's been on me, but it's all constructive criticism, and he knows my potential, and he knows what I can bring to this team. So he's trying to pull that out of me, and it's fun going every day, just learning from him and following his lead, and then going out there and leaving it all on the line for him and my brothers on the team. So
I hope he does get it out of you. I hope we get to see a lot of you this season, in the future, over the course of your time here in Kansas City, man. I was excited to see you drafted here. Excited to see you on the field. It's Cornell Powell, the rookie Chiefs wide receiver, who we've talked about the progress that he'll have to make as a rookie, the process of making that kind of progress in an Andy Reid offense. A couple things that I thought were most interesting there. The two things that stood out to me. One is that he says that sort of running off of feel and seeing what the defense is giving you, and then feeling where you're supposed to go out of that. You're not just running a route, but you are also making decisions as you go. Being the biggest difference from Clemson to the NFL, I think, is really interesting, because it also goes to show that is a bigger learning curve than I think maybe we even give it credit for, even kind of knowing about it a little bit. And frankly, again, it's not something that I feel like I heard almost anything about until I just remember really well being at a press conference. I think it was in the playoff run ahead of the Super Bowl, maybe. It might have even been the year before that, that obviously ended in the AFC Championship game lost. But one of those years, 'cause I remember it being in the big room, if memory serves, where Travis Kelce was talking about that aspect of the game, and it sort of just cracked open the I don't know, the outside of the dinosaur egg or whatever. I feel like I'm always kind of just seeing if we can peck at that anymore, because it's something that just does not end up in most conversations about the Chiefs, about the NFL, about offense, at least the ones that I've been around. So seeing that, hey, that's not even happening in Clemson at this point, because you also, I imagine that takes so long that by the time you're that kind of comfortable in the offense, you're graduating, or you're going into the NFL at least, at the very high collegiate level. And then also the idea, I asked about what he thinks the Chiefs are looking for from him and why they liked him in the pre-draft process and all of that. I don't know if you caught this, but he listed off a lot of very Sammy Watkins things. Even some of the stuff that Sammy Watkins was saying that he was in Kansas City to do, now that he is in Baltimore, of, hey, this team has superstars. We need someone who can have those one-on-one matchups and then win them and do it with some physicality, because there's already speed all over the place. Those two things were my biggest takeaways from that.
And not to get too far off topic, did you see what happened to Sammy Watkins?
Did he leave practice earlier today?
He did. They have Hurt right now, and Hurts various degrees because we don't know everything. It's Rashad Bateman, obviously Marquise Brown, and Sammy Watkins. So they obviously, the Ravens made a significant moves to really improve that wide receiver room, which is smart.
Yeah, of course.
And then they're currently missing all three of them right now. Now, again, Rashad Bateman's supposed to be back, I think, very early in the season. And Sammy Watkins is not deemed out for a prolonged period of time. It was just kind of
it's a tough turn of
especially
events.
a week after, where he basically made the comments hey, I'm just excited to be able to go out and put up numbers.
Yeah.
Because in Kansas City, that wasn't my job.
It's not like they have a quarterback that can throw to them anyway. They don't need wide receivers.
I also heard something funny about Lamar Jackson. Basically, he's not going to get his contract extension now because Baltimore doesn't want to reward a quarterback who won't get a vaccine.
Well, also, you have to play.
Yeah.
He's gotten COVID twice, right?
Yeah.
It's just
basically they're just hey, we're going to give this to you, but
Can we make sure that your lungs are okay and that you are going to protect them? Yeah, that seems...
Make better choices?
That seems reasonable, I think.
Both on the field and off the field? On the field as in when you throw the football, throw it to a receiver? Well, I guess really throw it to a tight end because they have no receivers. They're all hurt. Anyways.
Beards, where did all that venom come from, Beards? Why do you hate Lamar Jackson so much?
I don't hate Lamar Jackson.
Seems like you might. Yeah, I thought that was all really interesting. And look, again, kind of to what Matt said, to just sort of pull together what Matt Derrick said earlier in the show and about Cornell Powell and my conversation with Cornell Powell. He has not forced his way up the depth chart at training camp. I don't know if he's fallen down it again, but you'd look at guys like Maurice French and Fountain and Kemp and
who I thought had
Garrett Dieter got some relatively early work the last couple of days.
I thought Kemp had a good first preseason game, and considering the fact that Dave Tobe obviously really likes Marcus Kemp. Marcus Kemp has been a Chief for as long as he's been, in large part because of Dave Tobe.
100%.
And so if you then now go out there on offense and have good games and just catch the ball when it's thrown at you, right? You don't necessarily have to make plays. It's just when the ball hits your hand, catch it. Marcus Kemp did that.
I am looking at the most, this is a little bit out of date, but of the receivers on the depth chart that I have in my hand right now, I have seen 8 of these guys I feel like get work ahead of Cornell Powell now, which is, again, not a great reflection. But whenever you have a guy that you feel like is going to get to that point, I do expect that they're going to basically just say, hey, if we get you to work on some special team stuff, you can sort of redshirt this year offensively. And again, we're doing some weird measurements with this, but whenever he was finally out there against some guys who are not going to make the 49ers, right? Like they on the back end of that roster.
Yeah.
Whenever he was out there, he was able to use his body and make those contested catches. I think those skills are very legitimate. My hope at this point, it's very hard to know this without knowing what the coaches are thinking, but my hope with Cornell Powell is that they are seeing all the traits they expected to see from him. And also, he is basically, I mean, if you want to go back through OTAs and stuff, maybe he's a few months into an Andy Reid offense, but really he's like a month into it. And to expect that guy to be out there week 1, and I may have gotten this wrong, on draft day. I think I would have been relatively, level-headed about this, but to expect him to be out there week 1 is kind of silly because it just simply never happens. And so I remain pretty bullish on Cornell Powell, and I'm excited to see what he ends up looking like in the long run. I would love to see him end up getting some work later in the season. And I don't know. This is a very dangerous thing to use as an evaluation for a football player, but like he seems like thoughtful and like he understands the stuff that he's talking about. I enjoyed talking to him, and like I don't know. Again, that there are lots of people that I enjoy talking to that aren't very good football players, I mean, that's...
It's not like
it's
a guarantee that
people.
he's going to go on to have a successful NFL career or anything, but for a guy, I mean, especially I think for guys who are later round draft picks, right? Like Cornell Powell, is drafted where he's at for a reason, right? Because he doesn't necessarily have Sammy Watkins' raw talent. That's why he goes 4th overall.
Right.
But you kind of overcome that by just understanding the game at a high level, and like you can help maybe make
role.
up. Yes, you can help make up for maybe some of your deficiencies.
Yeah.
Just knowing, hey, this is what my job, this is what I need to do, and this is how I can get it done.
And then if that guy is able to stick around at that level for a few years, by the time he's doing it as a 6-year veteran or whatever, maybe he's able to do some Sammy Watkins things. Because again, I don't want to make this segment bashing on Sammy Watkins, but like Sammy Watkins was not able to hit his ceiling largely because of injuries.
Yep.
If Cornell Powell is able to hit his ceiling, it might look a whole lot closer to the actual end result of a Sammy Watkins or whatever. So anyway,
and that's what this offense needs. This offense needs somebody to develop in, because the one thing with Sammy, like even though like and this was the biggest issue was the injuries, but when he was out there, the Chiefs offense was better because he was a legitimate receiver who the defense had to respect.
Absolutely.
And they need somebody like that to really step up and be like, okay, this is a legitimate NFL number 2 wide receiver.
Yep.
And you have to actually give him some attention, because if you don't, he's going to have big games.
Yep. So I'm very, very hopeful for Cornell Powell, and I very much appreciated his time and really enjoyed talking to him, which is, again, a dangerous reason to say that you should buy his jersey, I guess. But I don't know. How unbiased do I have to be? Buy a jersey.
Yeah.
Buy a Cornell Powell jersey. I think that's pretty good. Or, he and Sammy Watkins both wore 14. So if you wear a 14 jersey and just throw a jacket over it or something, who's going to know?
Nobody's going to know.
Nobody's going to know.
Nobody's going to know.
Whenever we come back, I want to play some audio from training camp today. We'll see if Beards lets me.
At JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, at Not That Rudy, at Sports Radio 810. Just do it already. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
Never busted out a big one.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I don't remember that's from, and it doesn't matter. I want to bring you a couple clips from training camp today, 2 audio clips because I was out there and I got to ask the questions, and you have to hear my questions and the answers now. Damn it, it's how this works. Let's start with Trey Smith. He's been a huge story this offseason. He will be the Chiefs starting right guard come week 1. I do not expect him to give that job back either, even with some great depth behind him. As long as he's healthy, I think it's his job. And he got his first look against another team in an NFL game. And I think the biggest thing right there for a young offensive line working together is the communication early, making sure you're all on the same page. You'll hear a follow-up a little bit on his growth that I asked about following that. But first up was my question about how he felt, communicating in that game in real time with 2 rookies on each side of him, himself being a rookie.
Yeah, I think I just got to be better, just knowing my assignment, executing my assignment, doing my techniques, and understanding the offensive scheme a little bit better. I have to do a better job of that.
How do you feel like you understand the scheme better now than you did at the beginning of camp? Like, how much growth have you had in this time?
Oh, yeah, I've had a ton of growth. Just sort of going out there, understanding what I'm supposed to do on most of the plays, just having a better football understanding and what we're trying to get accomplished, the concept of the actual plays.
That's the growth of an offensive lineman in an offense in his first year. I mean, a huge trend, obviously, from Cornell Powell to Noah Gray to Trey Smith to Lucas Niang to Creed Humphrey, obviously. I mean, you're gonna find that all over the place. On the inverse, a guy who's been here for a while is Ben Neiman. He talked to the media today, and this is his 3rd year with Steve Spagnuolo. It's Spags' 3rd year here in Kansas City, and we talked a lot about how Spags was installing his defense in year 1, the jump from year 1 to year 2, but nobody's really been talking about year 2 to year 3. So I asked Ben Neiman what Spags' defense is showing here in his 3rd year in Kansas City.
Yeah, every year I think everybody's getting more comfortable in the scheme, and the more comfortable we are, the more little, tweaks and adjustments and little things he can put in just because, it's not a basic, I don't know what you want to call it, level. We're at kind of that advanced level, and we have a full understanding of the scheme, so then you can add more to it.
The way that I'm kind of reading into that is, year 1 was largely like, let's get this groundwork down. And then they bleeped around and won a Super Bowl. And obviously they were adding as the year went on. It was not as simple as I'm making it out to be right now. But then year 2 is a question of, hey, let's go ahead and get these wrinkles really put in here, and let's get ready to show some stuff. And they did show some stuff last year. And I mean, they did some in year 1 as well. Again, I'm oversimplifying. But then going into year 3, it feels like, all right, we have a mastery of the stuff that took us 2 years to fully set into stone. All of that stuff is basic to us now. Now what can we give them? And that's
now
it's
like calculus at this point. We're throwing out some tricks now.
Yeah.
Like we're doing some different stuff.
There are letters
it might
in
get
there.
a little complicated. There's an X squared, and you're like, I don't know what this is.
How do you multiply a
here
letter?
We go.
And so I think that is a really interesting note to make. And obviously, look, I mean, in the NFL, I think in all professional sports, you're tinkering 100% of the time.
Constantly.
You are always having to evolve. To give a cross-sport tease for later in the week, talked to Brady Singer about working on his changeup and stuff at the same event over the weekend. And
he has a 3rd pitch?
He's working on it. He's working on his 3rd pitch.
Oh,
and
sure.
I am. And there's...
Positive.
He told me. And we'll play that interview later this week as well. Just as a reminder, guys that I talked to this weekend that you'll hear from at some point this week. Derrick Nottie was awesome. Tamba Hali was awesome. Jordy Nelson was great. Scott Barlow, Brady Singer, Hunter Dozier, Nicky Lopez, all coming sometime this week on Almost Entirely Sports. We might have even another special guest on tomorrow night's show in addition to Seth Kaiser. Beers raises his eyebrow. I told you who the special guest might be. It's somebody who's in town for training camp. I'm not going to say it, though, because if they don't end up being able to do it, I don't want to blow it.
The pretty
special guest, though.
It would be very special. No, it's not the people that I just read, Rudy. I've already established. How can that be special? Talk to you tomorrow. Bye, Mom.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.